risk of localised flooding. Additionally, increasingly strong winds will affect Irish Sea coastal areas, the hills of northern England and southern Scotland, and some higher routes as well could be affected by those winds first thing. To the woods of southeast, largely dry overnight and during the morning on Thursday, if rather cloudy. By this stage, the rain is pushing into northern England, Wales and the southwest, but it's clearing from Scotland and Northern Ireland. Brighter skies follow, albeit with a scattering of showers into western Scotland, northern and western parts of Northern Ireland, interspersed by sunny spells. So a brighter day to come for Scotland and Northern Ireland, sunny spells and showers. England and Wales, meanwhile, again a lot of cloud cover, but this time with the band of rain sinking southeast, fizzling out as it pushes into the southeast, so light intermittent rain more than heavy and persistent wet weather. But it's going to feel cool with the breeze continuing into Thursday afternoon. Sunny spells to begin the evening across central parts, but increasingly cloudy and increasingly wet weather arrives from the west once again. An unsettled night and early Friday before that all clears to sunny spells and showers for the weekend.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours, but time is ticking. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Football and gambling can go hand in hand and cause long-term problems. New figures show that young adults aged between 16 and 24 who have bet over the last year are more likely to report mental health issues compared to those in older age groups.
And joining us now to discuss this is Matt Burgess, who is a former gambling addict and now helps those to deal with their own gambling issues.
Yeah, I think gambling is one of those things that is so accessible now. You know, everyone's got a kind of mobile phone in their pocket, walk around with a kind of 24-hour casino, if you like. So I think it's really important that people realise that we have to sort of recognise that that is a month of quite condensed gambling, and we don't want people to sort of carry that on into their everyday life, because that's when it can become really risky and you know, it could become addictive.
I had no idea, though, that it was linked to first-time gambling. For the first time, people might be able to pick up and have a go. And then it doesn't end there. It goes on, because by then you've got the bug. Is that how it works?
You've got to remember, for things like the Euros, the World Cup, so you get a lot more people watching football and therefore potentially betting on football.
May I ask you about how severe your own gambling addiction got?
Well, look, I think there was a couple of touch points for me where I realised that things were getting out of hand. There were some times at university where, you know, I kind of thought, you know, I'm definitely doing this a bit too much, but, you know, kind of thought maybe it would move on once I left, but it didn't. It did follow me. And then, you know, I got to points where I was at my worst gambling 16, 17 hours a day. I was spending huge amounts of money. It can spiral out of control very, very quickly, and that was the important thing that we want to highlight is, you know, what can start as fun can become very, very dangerous in a sense.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A very good afternoon to you. It's 3 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News. We're broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster, all across the UK. On today's show, the grim discovery as 2 bodies have now been found in the search for 6 missing people after divers searched the underwater wreck of the super yacht off the coast of Sicily. Now, how likely is it now that others will be found alive, or are we hoping for a miracle? Another breaking story, a delivery driver who was just doing his job has been killed while trying to stop his van from being stolen. A manhunt is underway for his thieving attacker, and we'll be live from Leeds with all of the latest. And the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has promised to deport 14,000 illegal immigrants and foreign criminals by the end of the year. But with over 19,000 arriving via dinghies so far this year and well over 1 million already inside Britain, is this once again governments talking tough in the face of an immigration crisis they simply cannot stop? And Chancellor Rachel Reeves is warning hard-pressed Brits to brace themselves for more tax hikes after the Labour Party borrowed £3 billion extra in July to bankroll, guess what, public sector pay rises. Now, that could cost every British taxpayer £878 per year. And I'm going to be joined by Paul Durrant, a 78-year-old granddad from Blackpool who is now 18 days into a hunger strike over the state of broken Britain, including illegal immigration, two-tier justice and axing of the winter fuel cap. Now, Paul said, "I'm prepared to do this until I die." And later this hour, he joins me in the studio. And we've got breaking news now. Rescue divers have recovered 2 bodies from the super yacht that sank off Sicily earlier this week. And they are the 2nd and 3rd victims of the shipwreck to be found. You can see there on your screen live pictures of what is now very much a recovery mission. No longer, it looks like, a rescue mission. 2 bodies have been recovered from that yacht. We believe one of them is male. No formal identification yet. You can see there live pictures of one of those bodies tragically being carried into the back of an ambulance. This is breaking news from Sicily. These pictures are live. And let's cross now to Sicily and speak to GBNews reporter. No, we don't have Adam just yet. These are live pictures. As I said, this operation now into its 3rd day, and 2 bodies recovered, found inside that hull. The hull was breached this morning. A window was broken and divers were able to access inside. There were hopes that pockets of air may have allowed a miraculous survival of anybody trapped inside that hull of the £14 million super yacht. It now looks decreasingly likely that is the case, as we are seeing here live pictures of 2 bodies being brought ashore. Now, all we know at present, there are still 4 other bodies missing. 3 have been recovered. A total of 7 on board that super yacht went missing. The Bayesian, and 3 have now been found. The ship's chef was the first to be found on the day of the tragic accident off the coast of Sicily. And now, as we can see, 2 more bodies have been retrieved and are being brought ashore. We there have forensic tents are being taken into that for examination. The meticulous evidence gathering is now underway. Now, all these images are distressing, so I apologise if you find them distressing. This is a live crime scene. We are bringing these pictures as we speak. The recovery of 2 bodies from inside that super yacht. So let's cross now. We do have Sicily. We can speak to GBNews reporter Adam Cherry, who is live on the scene. Adam, welcome to the show. When we spoke yesterday, the prospect of getting to survivors was looking vanishingly, looking like a vanishing chance, and it appears now, Adam, that has been borne through. 2 bodies have been recovered.
Yeah, Martin, you've just seen on your screens, viewers at home, in the last few minutes, 2 bodies arriving on the shore, being escorted into an ambulance here. Emergency services personnel all lined up on the pier here. Most of the vessels which have been out to sea all day long have just returned to the shore here. One, the largest, has turned back to return to the wreckage, above the wreckage. The rest are now are now with those on the shore and negotiating the circumstances of the 2 bodies, unfortunately.
And what's happening here? We haven't had any form of identification yet. That, of course, will come in the fullness of time, but it is being announced on the global wires on PA. 2 bodies have been found, one of them male, Adam.
Yeah, a male, heavy-set male. They're not saying any more than that at the moment. You say that will come in the fullness of time. There are still 4 more missing people on that vessel. However, given the latest developments, given the speed with which they're now progressing through the vessel using a more sophisticated underwater drone, that we could possibly see more developments very, very shortly. As I say, the largest vessel has already returned back to the scene of the wreckage, so they are immediately resuming search efforts as I speak.
And we know, Adam, of course, the about 50 metres of depth of water, great pressure, and very challenging circumstances of this recovery mission because, of course, the only way into the vessel was through hatches, and that places the dive teams, the rescue teams themselves in quite a lot of peril and a short window, Adam Cherry, of when they're able to be operative due to decompression. All of these circumstances made this a slow and meticulous recovery mission, but now, Adam, it appears that it is bearing some grim evidence.
Yeah, that's right. They could only spend up to 12 minutes submerged before having to resurface. So I suspect the arrival of this sophisticated drone technology has massively sped up the search and rescue or now indeed the search and recovery operation. They're going cabin to cabin. Of course, this ship sank very early in the morning, so most of those on board would have been asleep in their rooms. The difficulty the divers also had was that given that the ship was virtually intact on the water, underwater, lots of furniture was blocking the exits. It was very difficult for them to see into the vessel. The glass in the windows is very thick. They were having difficulty breaking it. All of that contributing to a very long search process. But now, significant changes, I suspect, as I say, with that robot, and now we can expect more very soon.
And of course, the huge advantage, Adam, of the underwater drone technology is that they don't have that human weakness, if you like, of only being able to stay underwater for a limited period of time. They'll be able to go into tight spaces. They'll be navigated from shore, no doubt, by a human operator. And so that would have allowed a much more forensic, detailed and in-depth analysis. And that, in many senses, has hastened the point of us getting to this recovery stage, but it doesn't look any more, Adam Cherry, as there's much chance of anybody being found alive on this craft now.
Well, no, the last hope really was of air pockets, given the size of the ship, giving people enough air to last for at least another maybe 12 hours or so from this morning. And of course, these developments would suggest that that hasn't been possible. With the air pockets, it's always difficult because if the ship moves even slightly, that can affect those pockets and can accelerate their decline. So that may have been a contributing factor in why they were slower earlier on, because they didn't want to rock or damage the ship or affect the ship too much. As you say, Martin, it's not looking good at this point.
And we do have, I believe we can show them again, we have pictures, distressing images, so if you're going to be offended by this, just warning you now, we have images of those bodies being carried ashore just a very short while ago on the dockside there on Sicily. You can see the bodies being carried ashore. Just to repeat, if you're just tuning in, the recovery of 2 bodies from the super yacht Bayesian, 4 bodies, 4 people still missing. Those images there, you can see inside what is a body bag. That was one of the bodies recovered from the hull, being taken, as you can see, into the privacy of forensic tent and also into the back of an ambulance. And the process now will be one of a more formal identification, no doubt. That process will be now beginning. And just to repeat, 4 bodies, 4 people still missing, 2 bodies recovered just now, and of course 1 on the night of the incident itself, on the early morning of the incident. A total of 3 bodies now recovered, 4 still at large. And Adam Cherry now begins the process of the formal identification of those bodies, no doubt in a nearby medical facility.
Yeah, as I say, we do know that one of those bodies recently discovered was a male, heavily set. Not saying any more than that, of course, at the moment. Wouldn't like to speculate on that. Some of those still missing, of the 6 still missing, we had Mike Lynch, the British businessman, his 18-year-old daughter, a lawyer from a very high-profile law firm. But again, the details on these 2 are not being readily released yet. But to say, Martin, I can also see behind me, beyond the large vessels out in the water above the wreckage, there is another smaller vessel which is just beyond it. So they are still looking or exploring the vessel itself, but most are still at the shore, as you can see on your screen. All of those boats have been out to sea all day, in fact, for the last 3 days. Now, with the exception of 1 or 2, returned to shore.
And just to repeat, so the body of the yacht's Kirk Ricaldo Thomas, that was located shortly after the vessel sank. And just to repeat here, 1 of 2 bodies now recovered from the vessel a short while ago here, as you can see on your screen, in Sicily, has been described by authorities, found by divers, is a heavily built man. That would fit the profile of Mike Lynch, but of course no formal identification yet, no naming. We will now begin the process of the formal identification, which will understandably take some time, and that the process of that will be contacting relatives to let them know first before anything is publicly made. This is standard practice. And of course then, Adam Cherry, the search will continue in the super yachts. There are still 4 unaccounted for.
Yeah, and they're not wasting a second getting on with that. As I say, they are still out there right now as I speak. I can see them in front of me. The friends and family are also nearby, in a nearby village. This is just about 10 miles east of Palermo itself, this town, Portolicio. So it's, everyone is still here. And once they are informed, I'm sure we'll find out more ourselves very, very quickly afterwards. But there is a formal process we have to go through here before any identifications are made public, other than what we know already, which is that 1 heavily built man has been found alongside another. So 2 bodies in total, 4 still missing people in the vessel itself.
And it's worth pointing out that Mike Lynch's wife, Angela, she's 57, she survived this tragedy. So she'll be watching and waiting all of this with extreme trepidation. As we say, Adam Cherry, there now follows a formal and rigorous and time-consuming process of formal identification. And until that process is completed, there'll be no announcement to the press. That is the process. I think that's the right thing to do. We have to follow protocol. But as you said, Adam Cherry, 4 still on that vessel, or around that vessel, 4 bodies, 4 people still missing. And that search, in tandem with the identification, will be carrying on as we speak. How busy is the area in terms, so we can see a very, very busy marina, shoreside activity there, numerous police officers, a large number of emergency service workers. Out at sea, Adam, how busy is the ongoing operation? What can you see?
Well, I can see 1 large vessel and then 1 smaller lifeboat just beyond it, maybe 20 to 30 metres further out to sea. The shore itself has become very, very busy in the last half an hour or so as this news has emerged. It's been quiet all day today, quieter than yesterday. And then the news happened all at once, really, very quickly. And as soon as people heard about it, they've obviously come straight to the shore. The pier which is behind me, viewers can't see it, but you can see the end of it, the footage on screen. That part is now completely formed with emergency services personnel. Again, that was relatively quiet throughout the day up until an hour ago, when more vehicles arrived. Saw a helicopter arrive as well within the last 45 minutes. They went straight to the end of the pier, where you can see what you're seeing on the screens at the moment. So it's picking up very quickly.
And Adam, in terms of that helicopter we can hear on our pictures now, is that being used, is that being deployed as part of the rescue mission? Is it forming like an aerial strategic overview, or is it ferrying divers from the shore to the location? How's that helicopter being used?
So I think what you can hear actually there is not a helicopter. It wasn't the helicopter. It was the boat, which is still there. You can see on your screen. It's one of the propellers of the boat. The helicopter itself is 50 meters in the other direction, and it's currently stationary. And so they're not using that at the moment. But what they do is every hour or so they send it out and send it around the perimeter of the area. So that we may see that again soon. But at the moment, it's staying still.
And I wonder if people are just tuning in, if we can just show those earlier images once again, and to warn you, they are distressing. This is of a body being carried into an ambulance, an earlier recovery. There it is now, the pictures. So 2 bodies have recently been recovered from the yacht, from the hull of that super yacht. You can see one there being carried ashore. It's a body bag being carried ashore by emergency service workers into what appears to be like a set-up forensic tent. And then there's adjacent to that is the back of an open waiting ambulance. We assume that the body will then be put in that ambulance after a while of it being examined, will be taken off to a nearby medical facility, and then the process of a formal identification will begin. And as Adam Cherry said, the friends and family of the survivors are in the area, in a village nearby. They'll be watching all of this and thinking this could be, the beginnings of very, very bad news. Pointing out again, Mike Lynch's wife, Angela, 57, she survived this tragedy, this typhoon, that tornado that tore into the ship and appeared to have capsized it. Its supersized mast may have been a factor. We understood as well, did we not, Adam Cherry, that the portholes on the boat, on the yacht, were open because it was a balmy, warm evening, and that may have hastened its sinking.
Yeah, this is part of the investigation. It's one of the leading theories at the moment. Of course, more will emerge in time. The hatches were open because it was a billion day, and it's difficult to do that. And whilst they're open and this water spout unexpectedly emerged, it sent a gust of water into the vessel, and that's why it sunk so quickly. Other vessels in the immediate area perhaps had theirs closed, which is why they survived that. There are now 4 British investigators that are conducting preliminary investigation, but we don't know much more than that at the moment, because those British investigators only arrived today, and of course the priority at the moment has been focusing on finding missing people.
And there's also some extraordinary footage, Adam, of the marina, where there are many, many other boats and many, many other craft that appeared to be largely unaffected by this very localized tornado. So again, in a sense, spectacularly unlikely accident just to hit this one vessel.
Yeah, I'm looking in front of me. There are hundreds upon hundreds of boats here. It's a very common area to dock. So what's being known as one event, something that in retrospect appears obvious. Keep those hatches closed in case of emergency. But something like this is so rare that you just don't think of those things. The captain of the ship, it was an experienced captain, clocked up lots of miles on the ocean. So it's not as if this is through negligence, it appears. It does just seem like horrendous bad luck and misfortune, unfortunately.
And yesterday on the show, Adam, we spoke to Dr. Simon Boxall. He's an oceanographer at the University of Southampton. He was a consultant during the Titan submarine disaster. And yesterday he said to me, even then, 24 hours ago, that with the depths, the temperature of the water, the high pressure, the effect that would have on anybody that may still be alive, and also, as we kept saying, the hope that there were air pockets that were able to fuel and help people that may be alive on there to survive, they would have been depleted. No idea of their size, although he pointed out this is a very, very substantially sized vessel. It's not a yacht in the sense of one that we'd understand from seeing around the shores of Britain, a super yacht. So a good sized vessel that people could easily walk underneath in the hull in, may have contained large pockets of air. But with the deployment, with the breaking of windows and the sending of drones inside, Adam, combing meticulously for evidence, you'd think if there was any good news, that good news would have been released.
So I should say, I see what's appearing in front of me now, the two vessels which were out to sea and have been throughout the duration of our conversation today. They're now returning to the shore as well. At least one of them. I can see one lifeboat containing maybe 8 to 10 emergency services workers is approaching the shore as I speak. You may be able to see it on your screen shortly when it arrives. The shore is heading directly towards us, along with it's being tailed by the larger vessel, although that's not coming into shore itself yet. Yeah, you see it just there. That's live right now. That is coming straight towards the emergency services at the shore, who are all still gathered. The ambulance containing the body bag of one of the discovered victims is still on the shore. It hasn't moved yet. So we'll see what happens with this boat as it arrives at the shore imminently. The other vessel is still, actually, it appears, staying out to sea at the moment, although it may come in shortly.
And Adam Cherry, you're on the location there in Sicily. That vessel that we now see coming ashore, was that one of the vessels that was actually above the sunken super yacht? This will be one of the vessels that's been involved in the direct search and rescue mission?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, so all day long, vessels like that and a few larger ones, they were all around the wreckage. And they are now, as you can see, arriving back to shore. But yeah, this was one of them. 100%, this was one of them. One of the smaller ones, which has been patrolling the area since early this morning. It was out to sea. It has now returned to shore. And it does. It looks like the larger one will remain outside of the shore. Will remain at sea for now. It's turning again as I speak. We're just escorting this one.
So we may well find that the larger vessel above the sunken super yacht, that's the one that the divers are going up and down from. That's the one that's, if you like, the airside point of contact for this underwater rescue mission with the drones, with divers as they go down. This vessel here coming ashore now, presumably, will be bringing something from that yacht ashore, perhaps. We saw a short while ago that's precisely what happened. Let's see what is offloaded from this vessel, if anything. There are 4 or 5 emergency service workers there. They appear to be passing things up to waiting emergency workers, ambulance workers, looks of it, diving equipment being passed up. Can't see any evidence of another body on this vessel. It looks like they're just putting their oxygen tanks ashore, perhaps for...
Yeah, Martin, it looks like equipment at the moment. It looks like equipment. I can't see anything other than that at this stage. Yeah, as I say, the other vessel has now turned around and looks like it's heading back out to sea. But that would be the only one. So all the smaller boats are now at shore, as far as I can see here.
And a routine part of any operation like this, Adam Cherry, would be the divers coming ashore to recuperate. They're under high pressure. That's why they're only allowed to go down for 12 minutes, because of the compression, fatigue and the effects of that underwater experience. And so they'd be coming ashore here to get their tanks replenished, because this is very much still a live recovery and rescue mission. 4 bodies still down there, Adam. So this is very much a live rescue mission we can undersea here.
Yeah, you can see them unloading equipment there as we speak. So that appears to be what's happening. You can see tanks, you can see diving equipment. So they are replenishing that now. I would expect, I don't know, but I would expect that they, or perhaps another boat, will turn around and head back out to the sea shortly. They're now just heading towards the back of an emergency services vehicle and the tent which has been set up. So what you're seeing here, the tents and the convoy, that's been there since Monday. It's grown since then, but it was relatively quiet throughout today until the last hour. As I say, when multiple new ambulances, the helicopter we discussed earlier, that all arrived almost immediately as soon as the news began to break, adding to the convoy here.
And within those tents there, that would become now like an onshore mission HQ. That equipment, there'd be spares and supplies all in there. So as we can see from these live pictures, the equipment being ferried ashore, no doubt being replenished and or replaced or serviced in those tents to then go back out to continue what is very much a live recovery mission. We can see medics and all sorts of emergency staff there, police, local forces out there waiting to assist anybody who may come ashore in distress. And that they're hoping, of course, they're praying as everybody watches, certainly the families, there may be some slim chance of survivors coming ashore. But it has to be said, Adam, every expert we've spoken to on GB News now with any experience thinks that the chances of anybody surviving this long underwater is vanishingly small.
It is. I mean, there are examples throughout recent history, of survivors of similar scenarios. One man surviving for 4 days in an air pocket underwater. Of course, we're now on the third here. So it's not totally out of the question, although, given the last news, of course, we'll be less optimistic about that. It's not unprecedented.
Okay. And if you're joining us now, just a quick update of the images you can see on your screen. In the last 20 minutes, we've seen footage of a body being brought ashore from that sunken super yacht, the Bayesian, and 2 bodies we've just learned in the last half hour have been recovered a short while ago. Of course, 1 body was recovered at the time of shortly after the boat being sank. That was the yacht's cook, Ricaldo Thomas. The only information that's been released pertaining to the 2 most recent bodies recovered by the authorities is that one of them is a heavily built man. Now, that would fit the profile of Mike Lynch, but that hasn't been confirmed that it is him. We know now a more formal process of identification will be underway. And as Adam Cherry pointed out there, the family, the friends of those who are available and around the area are in a village nearby, and that includes, tragically, the wife of Mike Lynch, 57, Angela, who survived this tragedy. And now the news that no wife, no family member wants to get could be coming nearer as the identification process now commences, Adam.
Yeah, that can take time. Don't forget, the chef was only identified yesterday publicly, but the body was discovered almost immediately on Monday. So there's a 24-hour gap there. We might expect the same here. We don't know precisely, but it's not an instant process. It can take time. They have to, as you said, let the friends and family know. They're staying nearby, so they will be told first. That's important. But yeah, as I say, it can take a while for this to reach us.
And Adam, there's just a small piece of information now coming out on Associated Press, and that is the 2 bodies that were found inside one of the vessel's cabins were between 2 mattresses. So it appears, one of the theories is that because this happened at night time, people would have been, in the early hours, the people would have been on board, most likely in bed. And if the theory of the yacht very rapidly capsizing, perhaps due to its extraordinarily high mast at the time of its manufacture, had the world's tallest mast, I understand, on a super yacht, and also because it was a very warm, balmy evening, the portholes, again a theory, may have been open, which may have exacerbated and increased this craft sinking. And now appears the information coming out, the 2 bodies recovered, says here, were found inside one of the vessel's cabins between 2 mattresses. And Adam Cherry, that level of detail would have been much easier to ascertain. Now we know that sophisticated high-tech underwater drones would have been able to go inside that vessel after a window was breached early this morning. Window was smashed, we understand, and these drones were able to go inside and comb it for information. And once that information has been gathered, then the humans will be deployed, as it were, because we have this 12-minute window, Adam Cherry, where they have to go down and get up pretty quickly because of the pressure and the effect on their bodies. So a combination of high-tech drones and then a human recovery team. That's the most likely events here. That is what is giving us this information, and tragically 2 bodies, Adam Cherry.
Yeah, the drones have obviously made a massive difference here. They were using a less sophisticated, a simpler model yesterday, we understand. And it was only today that they deployed a newer and more higher-tech drone, which can stay underwater longer, it can go to a greater depth. And when we presume, as you say, Martin, that they'll use this as the reconnaissance engineers, and then once they have a better understanding of what's inside and which to go to and where to look, then they deploy the divers, who can only stay underwater for 12 minutes, and that includes the descent and the ascent. So it's even less than that in terms of being down under the water.
Yeah, and that indicates the combination of high-tech, non-human devices. These drones would have been able to go inside that hull and meticulously search, like, almost like an underwater endoscopy, if you like, searching the nooks and the crannies of this submerged craft, a sizable craft, of course, as we said, so big enough for a person to walk underneath the deck on the hull. That gave a lot of hope. We can see on the screen now some of the high-tech drones, underwater devices which would be lowered down. You can see they're being operated by a man, looks like from his mobile phone, so controlling that underwater, like a mini submarine. You can see on your screens now, that will be sent down. It's on a cable there on its power source, 50 meters depth, of course, so that will be going down on that 50-meter cable, and via a human floating on that inflatable raft. You can see above the sides of the sunk yacht, the Bayesian, would be then going down, and where there are entry points, which of course would be established via the drone, or maybe a human who'd been down and had made an entry point. We heard earlier on, Adam Cherry, that the window had been smashed to create an entry point. That device you can see on your screens now would have been sent inside. You can see it has it has like a grip on front to help it move things around, because there'd been a lot of debris underwater. Bear in mind, this was a very hastily upended craft. So this would be like a sort of 3D, fast-moving, very laborious and difficult underwater set of chambers to navigate. And Adam Cherry, that's precisely why it was so difficult for humans to do this alone, because all of those factors we just mentioned there will be very time-consuming, and of course that eating into that precious 12-minute window that a human diver would have had.
Yeah, that's the point. Part of the issue, as you just described, was the furnishings inside the vessel being capsized and blocking entranceways. Also, the thickness of the glass. For those watching on television will have seen the robot that they eventually used to smash the window and get into the vessel. 3 centimeters thick, we believe. Very, very thick glass, and that made it difficult for the divers to break into the vessel without causing damage in a way that might actually affect the air pockets or compromise the ship in other ways. I should just say, as I've been standing here, a helicopter has just flown over again, and it looks like the largest vessel, the largest Coast Guard vessel, which escorted the lifeboat to the shore, has now resumed its sentry position just above the wreckage itself. It's no longer moving, so one will presume that the investigation search mission is now continuing.
And the second craft we can see on our screen here, the Coast Guard craft, there, the orange craft, that came ashore a short while ago. That was filled with equipment, oxygen tanks, diving tanks. Of course, that would be replenished in that tented area behind us there. And that tent, you can see at the back of the image there, that about 20 minutes ago, that was where the body bag was carried into. We haven't seen it come out of that yet. The ambulance was waiting the whole period. So I'm assuming now that body will be being looked at by medical professionals in that white tent, like the forensic tent you can see there. This begins the lengthy and painstaking period of identifying the deceased. And just to repeat, if you're joining us, the only information that's been released by the authorities, 2 bodies have been found, 1 male and heavily built, a heavily built man at that. So we know that 4 more people are still missing at present. two just brought ashore, and of course the yacht's cook, Ricardo Thomas, was located shortly after the vessel sank. And once that equipment has been replenished, of course, this will be very much an ongoing live recovery mission that will go out there with fresh equipment for the divers. And as we just saw fascinating pictures a moment ago, if we get those back on again, of the high-tech drone, the underwater drone that's being sent down from a vessel floating on the surface directly above the sunken hull of the super yacht Bayesian, the £30 million yacht that capsized, of course, in a tornado off the coast of Sicily. You can see there, that's the device that's been the real breakthrough, it appears, in this. It looks like a recovery mission now, less of a rescue mission. Sophisticated electronic device sent down, operated, you can see there, via a mobile phone. Incredible. They can be plugged into a phone, as you can with a drone that goes in the air. So you plug your phone into it, you can see via the sophisticated cameras, you can see on your phone what that drone can see underwater. And that would allow the man on that boat there to use joysticks in 3D, as you would with a drone going in the air, to send it down to the craft, the Bayesian, to try and get a vantage point where the hull had been breached. We've heard that maybe some of the portholes were left open. That's a potential entry point. The craft, that drone is quite sizable. There's quite a big little unit, so that maybe would have gone into the window we understood was smashed this morning. A vantage point, the hull was breached. And as Adam Cherry said there, the glass, very pressure-proof, very thick, 3-centimetre glass. It would take some force, particularly underwater, to be able to break glass like that. That drone would have got inside the vessel. And the grim discoveries that we're now finding out as information trickles out to us was that drone, it appears, the two bodies that were discovered were found inside one of the vessel's cabins, between two mattresses. Now, obviously, a lot of movement can go on underwater, but that does fit with one of the theories that because this happened at night time, in the early hours of the morning, people on board were most likely in bed, asleep, and the tornado whipped in with huge ferocity and huge speed. It most likely would have taken everybody by great surprise, and they may have been asleep at the time. The boat was very quickly capsized by the looks of it. That may have been in part due to its incredibly tall mast, a theory that once it was rocking in the water, that upended it. Couple that with the portholes being opened, then water will be able to ingress very quickly into that craft. It would have gone down with great rapidity. If that is the case, that's the working theory a lot of experts have been telling us. And at that point, it appears that the bodies that have now been found were found in those cabins. Most likely, that sits with the theory that this happened very quickly and at night time. So just a quick summary in case you're joining us now. You're seeing live pictures on your screen on shore at Sicily, at the marina, at the nearest vantage point to the recovery mission of the Bayesian. That's the super yacht. We know that Mike Lynch, the British tech billionaire, was on board. 7 were missing. Mike Lynch and his daughter Hannah are 2 of them. Mike's wife, Angela, 57, she miraculously survived. 3 bodies have now been recovered. Soon after the ship went down, the yacht went down, Ricardo Thomas, the chef's cook, was recovered. And around about 35 minutes ago, we saw live pictures here on GB News of a search and rescue vessel coming ashore, and the grim cargo on board was 1 body bag carried into that tent behind you. 2 bodies recovered from that yacht around about 30 minutes ago. That's all of the latest news.
Hi there, time for the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Wet and windy, increasingly so in the northwest overnight, drier elsewhere, and for all of us it will be a relatively mild, if not warm, night to come. A couple of low pressure systems heading our way. The one to the south contains the remnants from ex-hurricane Ernesto, no longer a hurricane but containing a lot of tropical moisture, and that moisture resulting in a lot of rainfall across northwestern parts overnight, especially western Scotland, where there's a rain warning in force because of the risk in places of 100 to 150 millimetres of rain, especially West Highland and Skye, risk of localised flooding. Additionally, increasingly strong winds will affect Irish Sea coastal areas, the hills of northern England and southern Scotland, and some higher routes as well could be affected by those winds first thing. To the woods of southeast, largely dry overnight and during the morning on Thursday, if rather cloudy. By this stage, the rain is pushing into northern England, Wales and the southwest, but it's clearing from Scotland and Northern Ireland. Brighter skies follow, albeit with a scattering of showers into western Scotland, northern and western parts of Northern Ireland, interspersed by sunny spells. So a brighter day to come for Scotland and Northern Ireland, sunny spells and showers. England and Wales, meanwhile, again a lot of cloud cover, but this time with the band of rain sinking southeast, fizzling out as it pushes into the southeast, so light intermittent rain more than heavy and persistent wet weather. But it's going to feel cool with the breeze continuing into Thursday afternoon. Sunny spells to begin the evening across central parts, but increasingly cloudy and increasingly wet weather arrives from the west once again. An unsettled night and early Friday before that all clears to sunny spells and showers for the weekend.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm John Vincent. Long delays on the M6 southbound in Cumbria. 2 lanes closed for a vehicle fire just after junction 40 for Penrith. Congestion going back towards junction 41 Cargate. We're seeing the usual slow traffic for the M5 northbound in the West Midlands to join the M6 at junction 8. Very slow on the M1 northbound in Northamptonshire. 2 lanes closed for an accident involving 3 lorries and a car between the Watford Gap services and junction 17 for the M45. We're still seeing some queues on the M4 westbound near London after an earlier broken down vehicle just after junction 2 for Brentford, although all lanes have now reopened. And we're seeing slow traffic on the M25 anti-clockwise in Surrey. There's a lane closed for a broken down vehicle between junction 11 Chertsey and 10 the Wisley interchange in the roadworks area. And that's the latest traffic and travel news.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Welcome back to the show. It's 3:42 and I just bring you up to date with the latest developments. As you can see now, live pictures on your screen to fill you in. 2 bodies have been recovered from the super yacht Bayesian off the coast of Sicily in this past 45 minutes. The only information that's been released by the authorities is that one of the bodies is male and heavily built. No formal identification yet. The body we saw a short while ago was carried into that forensic tent. You can see there at the top right of your picture. And we assume now that the body is being examined and the beginnings of an identification process will be underway. And we just found out extra piece of information that the 2 bodies were recovered from one of the ship's cabins, and they were between mattresses, very much fitting with the theory that this happened at night time when the passengers, almost all of them, would have been in their cabins asleep, and the yacht capsized, it appears, quickly. The windows may have been left open, the portholes open, so it filled with water quickly. The water ingress went down very quickly. We saw a short moment ago equipment being brought to shore to be replenished. This is very much still an ongoing search and recovery mission. It looks more like a search and recovery as opposed to search and rescue, because 4 more bodies are still missing. We're assuming down on that vessel, and it's been meticulously and methodically swept now by underwater drones and also divers who are able to go down in that precious 12-minute window they have. Now we can bring a local journalist in now, and that's a journalist at the Giornale de Sicilia, and that's David Ferrara. Thank you for joining us, David, so we can see live pictures on our screen here, the images, no doubt, that none of the friends or family would be wanting to see. We understand that they are in a nearby village. 2 bodies in the last 45 minutes have been brought ashore.
Yeah, the two bodies of 6 missing people were recovered by the divers. The victims are have not yet been identified, but now they were taken ashore, as we can see. The bodies were in a passenger cabin behind furniture and mattresses. That locked the door, so the recovery was really difficult. One, as you said, is one of the bodies, a male body. So now we are waiting for, of course, for updates. Maybe the body we will be see to for by the we will be see by the 15 people that are in the hotel to understand which are the victim. For now, we were waiting for updates. So it's all on the end of the Coast Guard and of the firefighting, of course, of the magistrates that are now on the place with the police and also Guard Coast.
And David, may I ask you about the interactions the emergency services, the police, the Coast Guard have had with the media? In the United Kingdom, we've been much more used to being regularly briefed. The press will be told what the latest was on the rescue mission. That hasn't happened in this instance. And so when do we think we're likely to hear a substantive report from the police or the authorities to the media?
The moment we don't have a lot of information because the dialogue between us journalists and the authority is not really good, because they are waiting for the bodies that will be seen by the 15 people in the hotel. So for now, I think maybe in an hour we could have some updates. But magistrates for now prefer that the dialogue between the journalists and authority stay in standby. So now we are waiting. It's a really difficult moment. So for now, we know only about the recovered, and that's it. We were waiting, of course, for updates, and we are waiting also news from some lawyers. But I think maybe in an hour, some new updates can end up.
We've just seen a statement from Salvino Cocchina. He's the director of Sicily's Civil Protection Agency. Issued a short statement saying, on behalf of myself and my colleagues, I would like to express my deepest sympathy to the families of the victims and express our condolences to them at this difficult time. And I guess now, David, we can see on our screens now the forensic tent. That's where we saw that body bag carried into around about 50 minutes ago now, 45 minutes ago. So the deceased body will be in there, and this is where the identification process begins. They've set up, I'm assuming they're like an onshore headquarters, an emergency operations HQ, and the body at present is inside that tent. What do you think happens next? That the ambulance is waiting there? Will the body be taken to a morgue, a laboratory for proper forensic analysis?
I think that the body will remain there, and maybe some of the 15 passengers could go there, of course. But it's something that obviously is in everything in evolution. So we are waiting. I don't want to say something more, but I think that maybe the bodies will stay there for the moment. In an hour, I think we will have something more, some updates. The only thing that I can say now is that of course the magistrate is coming, so more of details and of course of what will be happen next depends on the magistrates. They will decide where the bodies have to go, or if the bodies have to stay there, and maybe someone from the hotel can go there with police, of course, to understand which person is there, which bodies is on the mall.
David, may I ask you, so it's approaching 5 o'clock in the afternoon in Sicily now, how much daylight do we have left? Because every minute, of course, is precious, but this mission, does it continue through the night, to your knowledge, or is it a recovery and rescue mission that's dependent on daylight? How much, because of course there are still 4 bodies down there, how much rescue operation do you think we can expect to see for the rest of today?
Okay, for example, yesterday the operation go through the night, for example. So maybe after this first goal that the authorities reach, the divers reach, maybe something could be happen also during the night. So I think that maybe diver will prove some new operation, maybe in 2 hours. For example, yesterday one operation was at 6 p.m. Sorry, and maybe a second one during the night. For example, at 11 p.m. p.m. Yesterday there was the last operation, so it's something that could happen, of course.
So I mean that's a crumb of comfort there. If they're able to work into the hours of darkness, we saw some very sophisticated equipment there. These underwater drones, no doubt, because they would usually be operating in very low visibility, so they'd have the ability to see in darkness via infrared or 3D imagery, so the operation can continue into the night.
Yeah, there is also a robot there that is a really high technological robot, and they have lights, of course, that can help the operation during the night. Of course, is more difficult than the first operation in the morning and in the afternoon, but I think that the firefighters and the divers will do a last operation during the night, as I said, during the 11 p.m.
Okay, David Ferreira, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much. Now, we'll have a full update on this story after the break. 2 bodies have been recovered this past hour from the super yacht Bayesian. Full details on that after your weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar. sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, time for the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Wet and windy, increasingly so in the northwest overnight, drier elsewhere, and for all of us it will be a relatively mild, if not warm, night to come. A couple of low pressure systems heading our way. The one to the south contains the remnants from ex-hurricane Ernesto, no longer a hurricane but containing a lot of tropical moisture, and that moisture resulting in a lot of rainfall across northwestern parts overnight, especially western Scotland, where there's a rain warning in force because of the risk in places of 100 to 150 millimetres of rain, especially West Highland and Skye, risk of localised flooding. Additionally, increasingly strong winds will affect Irish Sea coastal areas, the hills of northern England and southern Scotland, and some higher routes as well could be affected by those winds first thing. To the woods of southeast, largely dry overnight and during the morning on Thursday, if rather cloudy. By this stage, the rain is pushing into northern England, Wales and the southwest, but it's clearing from Scotland and Northern Ireland. Brighter skies follow, albeit with a scattering of showers into western Scotland, northern and western parts of Northern Ireland, interspersed by sunny spells. So a brighter day to come for Scotland and Northern Ireland, sunny spells and showers. England and Wales, meanwhile, again a lot of cloud cover, but this time with the band of rain sinking southeast, fizzling out as it pushes into the southeast, so light intermittent rain more than heavy and persistent wet weather. But it's going to feel cool with the breeze continuing into Thursday afternoon. Sunny spells to begin the evening across central parts, but increasingly cloudy and increasingly wet weather arrives from the west once again. An unsettled night and early Friday before that all clears to sunny spells and showers for the weekend.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm John Vincent. Long delays on the M6 southbound in Cumbria. The entry slip road is closed and 2 lanes closed on the main carriageway at junction 40 Penrith as a result of a vehicle fire. Queues on the M6 southbound in Warwickshire. It's all due to an accident at junction 2, the M69. We've got the usual slow traffic for the M5 northbound in the West Midlands, heading up towards the M6 at junction 8. Estimated travel time there around 20 minutes. Severe delays on the M1 northbound in Northamptonshire. There's 2 lanes closed for recovery work for an accident involving 3 lorries and a car between the Watford Gap services and junction 17 for the M45. And we're seeing intermittent queues on the M49 northbound in Gloucestershire in the roadworks to join the M4 at the Prince of Wales Bridge. And that's the latest traffic and travel news.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
We could be calling you with the news that you've won our latest Great British giveaway, an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm John from sunny North Yorkshire, and I've just won £20,000 in the GB News Great British giveaway. It didn't cost much to enter, but of course if you're not in, you can't win. And here I am having won £20,000, and that's tax-free, so I'm rather pleased I did it.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News, broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster, all across the UK. On today's show, the grim discovery. Live pictures on your screen now. 2 more bodies have been found in the search for 6 missing people after divers searched the underwater wreck of the super yacht. And that means that 5 have now been found in total. 4 have been found this afternoon, added to the previous discovery of the ship's cook. So that's 5 have now been found. And how likely is it that others will be found alive? Or are we hoping for a miracle? 2 more bodies still missing. And a delivery driver who was just doing his job has been killed while trying to stop his van from being stolen. A manhunt is underway for his thieving attacker, and we'll be live from Leeds with the latest on that story. And the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has promised to deport 14,000 illegal immigrants and foreign criminals by the end of the year. But with over 19,000 arriving via dinghies so far this year alone, and with well over 1 million already in Britain, is this, once again, the government talking tough in the face of an immigration crisis it simply cannot stop? Thanks for joining me on the show. Always a pleasure to have your company. So the top story, 4 bodies have now been recovered this afternoon from the sunken super yacht. And in other news, I'm hoping to be... You can see now live pictures on your screen. 2 bodies were found about an hour ago. We've just learned another 2 bodies have been brought ashore. That brings the recovery of 5 bodies now in total. There were 7 originally missing. That, I think, means that there are now just 2 unaccounted for in that white forensic tent at the top of your pictures there. That's where we saw 1 body being taken. The information released was a heavily built male that would fit the profile of Mike Lynch, but no detail, no formal identification yet given. That will be now painstakingly taking part as the hours roll forward. The full development on this story throughout the rest of the show. Get in touch on other points. Do you believe Yvette Cooper on net immigration being brought down? Plus, I'll be joined in the studio shortly by Paul Durrant, a grandfather from Blackpool who's heroically entered into his 18th day of a hunger strike over what he thinks is a broken Britain. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. But now it's your headlines with Cameron Walker.
Good afternoon. It's 2 minutes past 4. I'm Cameron Walker here in the GB newsroom. And as you've been hearing, divers have recovered 4 bodies this afternoon out of the 6 missing following the sinking of the luxury yacht off the coast of Sicily. These are live pictures from the area. Another body that was recovered shortly after the vessel sank on Monday has already been identified as Ricardo Thomas, meaning the death toll so far this afternoon is 5. One of the bodies found today is, quote, and I quote, a heavily built man, that coming from sources in Sicily. The boat, owned by the wife of British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch, was carrying 22 passengers and crew and was anchored off the port of Porticello near Palermo when it capsized during a storm on Monday. Police have launched a murder investigation after a delivery driver was involved in a collision during an attempted theft of his van. West Yorkshire Police says officers were called shortly before 7 p.m. yesterday following reports of a man found seriously injured in Wortley in Leeds. Officers found the victim unconscious. He was given emergency treatment but was pronounced dead at the scene a short time later. Police say the victim, who's in his 40s, had delivered a package to an address about half a mile away at 6:45 p.m. and had returned to his van to find a man attempting to steal it. When he tried to stop the offender, he drove off at speed, with the victim only partly in the passenger door of the vehicle. A murder investigation's been launched after 4 people, including 3 children, died in a house fire in Bradford in the early hours of this morning. Officers were called just after 2 o'clock by the fire service to reports of a house fire at a property on Westbury Road. A 29-year-old woman was pronounced dead at the scene. 2 girls, aged 9 and 1, and a 5-year-old boy were taken to hospital, but all 3 have now died from their injuries. A 39-year-old man was arrested at the scene on suspicion of murder and was taken to hospital with critical injuries. Neighbour Lindsay Pearson described what she saw.
We looked out the window and we just saw a big flame. Like, the sky was all lit up. It was like thunder and lightning. But everybody was just so upset, you know.
The Home Office has outlined plans to tackle illegal immigration, including deploying 100 new intelligence officers to target people smuggling gangs. The Home Secretary has announced the new measures to boost Britain's security and to target, dismantle and disrupt organised immigration crime networks. Yvette Cooper also outlined the government has new plans for the next 6 months to achieve the highest rate of removals of those who don't have the right to be in the UK, including failed asylum seekers. As part of its plan, the government says it'll reopen immigration removal centres in Hampshire and Oxfordshire, adding 290 beds. The Conservatives have said Labour were not serious about tackling the people smugglers or stopping the boats. A Pakistani web developer is facing a criminal charge over claims he helped spread misinformation about the accused Southport attacker. Documents shared exclusively with GB News show that 32-year-old Farah Asif has been charged with cyber terrorism after false claims quickly spread online that the suspect even accused of killing the 3 young girls in Southport was a Muslim immigrant to the UK. Pakistani police say that Asif claims he's not the original source of the false information, but reposted it on social media. A £3.1 million UK government package to tackle mpox will ultimately benefit all of us, according to the Africa Minister. On a visit to the Biomedical Institute in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Minister for Africa Lord Collins pledged the money to prevent the spread of the disease previously known as monkeypox. According to the World Health Organization, around 15,000 cases of mpox have been detected in the DRC this year, with 500 deaths reported. The World Health Organization declared an upsurge of mpox cases in the DRC, a public health emergency of international concern. It was announced last week. Official figures show the rising cost of public services and benefits caused government borrowing last month to surge on the year before. Borrowing hit £3.1 billion last month, around £1.8 billion more than in July last year. The increase means borrowing has hit its highest level for the month since 2021. The Office for National Statistics also revealed the UK's national debt remained at its highest level since the early 1960s. And European brown bears, a bongo and red-billed hornbill have been measured today during the annual weigh-in at Whipsnade Zoo in Bedfordshire. It's an important part of their care, keeping track of the creature's vital statistics, helping zookeepers and vets keep track of the health and well-being of all the animals at the Conservation Zoo. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Cameron Walker, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Cameron. We have some breaking news for you now, and it's not good news. The Daily Telegraph say that the bodies found on the Sicily yacht include the British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch and his daughter. And they're citing the Sicily Civil Protection Chief. The rescue divers have recovered another 2 bodies from the super yacht as well that sank off Sicily earlier this week. And that makes 5 bodies in total found. That was 4 bodies recovered today, and we're just learning in these last few moments that includes the bodies of Mike Lynch and his daughter. The 5th body found in the early hours when the yacht went down was the chef of the yacht. 5 bodies now in total have been recovered. That means that 2 are still outstanding and that search and rescue mission, as you can see, search and recovery mission now very much ongoing. 2 more unaccounted for. Now, joining us now is the meteorologist Jim Dale, who also served in the Royal Navy as forecaster to warn the captain of weather-related issues. Jim, welcome to the show under grim circumstances. The breaking news just in. Mike Lynch reported and his daughter are among 2 of the 4 bodies recovered today. Jim, in terms of the climate, the conditions, the tornado, how it would have impacted the ship, the information that's coming out now appears to show, it's been reported that the 2 bodies were recovered from, 2 of the bodies were recovered from the master bedroom of this craft. In terms of a tornado striking a craft like this, Jim, in your experience, it would have been a very, very rapid onslaught.
Yeah, good afternoon, Martin. There's a few things running here. First of all, in terms of my own side background, I do investigate occurrences like this for the police, for coroners and others as part of my day job. Little known, but that's what I do. I go to court and I try to explain these weather type situations, and obviously not involved in this one at this moment in time, but certainly this has got meteorology written all over it as far as the water spouts were concerned, because it was a water spout rather than a tornado. But a couple of clues for you here that are coming out now, and the first one of those is that the day itself, there was apparently reported something like 19 water spouts within the local area. Now, you know, if you're the captain of that particular yacht, if you're in charge of that yacht, you've got to be concerned with this. You've got to be concerned that this is a very unstable situation. And anchoring in a harbour out to sea slightly rather than in the port would have put them more at risk than being in the port itself. That's for sure. So that's the first thing to say. Now, the second thing to say in terms of the moment of impact, some of the people who survived, thankfully survived, seem to get an early warning in terms of the noise, in terms of the kerfuffle, if you like, the waves, etc., rearing up as this particular water spout came towards them. So thankfully they had their wits about them to get to the right position and to eventually survive. Those that are sadly being found in their cabins now obviously did not. Remember, this is early in the morning, so they would have been asleep more likely, and you know, you've got to act very quickly in these circumstances, and certainly with no degree of panic, because that's the last thing you need to do. So this is an unfortunate incident, but I'm going to use one word now that might be put forward in the future, and that is potential negligence in terms of why that particular yacht was where it was in such an unstable weather situation.
And Jim, we just saw some incredible pictures of the sophisticated underwater drones that were deployed from the surface by a dive team, coupling with their mobile phone, as you know you can do for a drone that goes in the air, 50 metres of depth. They'd have been sent down to that vessel, the eyes and ears on the surface, sending them down. And at that point, we discovered, Jim, that once the vessel had been breached by force, we understand this morning, then the drone could go in, because of course there's a very, very short period, a 12 minutes window due to the compression effects on the divers where a human would be able to operate. So a real breakthrough in this recovery, Jim, would have been the deployment of those high-tech devices.
Yeah, we obviously modern technology has made this particular operation happen, and just by the fact you're actually saying, you know, divers can get 12 minutes. It's really sad to say, but what we're seeing at the moment in terms of the recovery of the bodies was almost inevitable. I know it's not the right thing to say, until those bodies are actually recovered. But when I was in the Navy, and certain occurrences that I saw when when people went into the water, whether they were contained in a boat, in an helicopter, or something else, your survival chances there diminished by the minute, never mind the hour. So 2.5 days later, we're into the position now where it's bodies that are being recovered rather than anything else, and that's the inevitability. But it's good that that they are being recovered. And the modern technology is actually working, because in my day in the Navy, that would not have been the case. It would have been a long haul, and perhaps some of those bodies would never have been found. We've been there before. The sea's a very dangerous place, and we've got to pay respect to it. I go back to where I started with this, in terms of saying, yeah, maybe, and we'll find out when the investigation starts to occur, that the apparatus on the yacht itself, for example, would have been very good in terms of mapping the weather, what was going on. The question remains is, was it looked at? Was the radar looked at for these particular storms getting close to them? So questions remain.
But the point you're flagging there, Jim, is, in your experience, if it was your job, if it was your duty to be watching the weather, you'd be watching not just the local weather, but, as you said, the weather in the surrounding area throughout the entire 24 hours preceding. And you're saying to us that there were now 19 such waterspouts in the area, and you're saying that perhaps should have been a red flag to the captain.
Red flag. They would be taking local warnings if they existed. I believe they did, but again, for the investigation, so warnings. They will get their own weather feeds anyway. 4:30. 4 o'clock in the morning, it's a quiet time. You're in a sea that you don't necessarily expect, huge catastrophe type events of this nature. So I'm not saying that the captain actually said they didn't see it coming. I can believe that. It's dark and the rest of it. But what would have been seen would have been, if the radar would have been switched on, would have been the rainfall coming from that particular water spout. It would have shown an echo on the radar. There would have been other clues around. We saw what was happening in Porticello in terms of the CCTV and what that showed. Yes, these things happen very quickly. However, being in that position of that yacht, where it was at the time it was, given the backdrop of the very unstable weather situation, I think, as I say, questions may be asked going forward now.
And Jim, as you said there, in your experience from recovery in Royal Naval vessels, a lot of people still saying there was this slim scintilla of hope, but with such a period of time having elapsed from when the craft originally went down, you felt that would be a miracle at best.
Yeah, I think you're using the right word, Martin. Miracle, scintilla of hope. That you've got to cling to that hope, just in case. We've seen experiences in the past where that little drop of hope has actually come to fruition. But in this case, I've got to say, even after day one, I was doubting that they were going to find anybody at all. You almost put yourself in their position, and how horrible it must have been to be awoken with that. You wouldn't know what's going on, to be frank with you. If you're in a cabin, dark, your lights are off, etc., and all of a sudden you're hit virtually by a train. It's a shock, to say the least, and probably a shock that you can't necessarily recover from and gain your senses. In other words, to escape. It's thankful that those people that did escape managed to get themselves either on top of the yacht itself, or in a position at least where they could escape and swim. And hey presto, they did. So thankfully, in this case, some survivors. It could have been a lot worse.
Okay, thank you, Jim Dale, for that expert analysis. And just to recap there, 5 bodies have now been recovered from the super yacht, including that breaking news. 5 bodies on that yacht, including confirmation we just heard from the media, British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch and his daughter, or 2 of those 5 bodies recovered. And next we'll talk about the Home Secretary vowing to clamp down on illegal migration. She has vowed to boot out more than 14,000 illegal immigrants. We'll discuss that next.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
It's a very difficult issue, this, right? As far as we know, the boxer with male chromosomes was born with female genitalia.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually quite simple. You know, sex in humans is binary and immutable because we are mammals. And there is a minority of people who have disorders of sexual development, and that can affect a person's reproductive organs. But these people are male or female. And yesterday, what we witnessed was basically just glorified male violence against women and girls. The difference is, I mean, that happens every day all over the world. And the difference is that in every other circumstance, we consider beating up women to be wrong, but it was deemed acceptable by those at the IOC because they're claiming that it's sport, but it's not. It's violence and it's wrong.
Peter, Lottie's right, isn't she, that we've been talking a lot recently about violence against women and girls, and regardless of whether this person is intersex or transgender, they have male chromosomes. That means they have a very, very distinct biological advantage that could actually be fatal to a female athlete competing against them.
Well, of course, sport does need to be fair, and we do need to examine this case very thoroughly. There are reports that the boxer, Iman Khalif, was born a biological woman. She is not transgender. She is not non-binary. She is not intersex. She may have elevated levels of testosterone, but that's entirely natural. It's beyond her control. It's the way she was born. And that is why the International Olympic Committee has said that she falls within the rules.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:21. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Police have launched a murder investigation after a delivery driver was killed trying to stop the alleged theft of his own van in Leeds yesterday evening. The victim is believed to be a man in his 40s and has not yet been named by police. And our Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley is live at the scene. Anna, a deeply, deeply concerning story of a man just going about his everyday business ended in tragedy. What's the latest?
Yes, an absolutely horrific story, Martin. Police cordon remains in place here. We're near Heights Drive, where that incident happened yesterday at around 6:50 in the evening. A murder investigation has been launched as a result, and police, nearly 24 hours on now, are still continuing their investigations door to door, collating CCTV footage, dashcam footage, and appealing for information. We know that a delivery in his 40s who has been, his family have been supported by specialist victim support officers in the police. He's not yet been named, but he was out doing his rounds as part of an Amazon delivery. As he came back to his vehicle, he saw that a man was trying to drive away in it. He tried to stop the theft of his vehicle. He tried to get in the passenger door of the van to try and stop that theft happening, and he was dragged along the road for at least a mile before he released from the vehicle. He was found unconscious by residents nearby who tried to provide assistance. Emergency services were called to the scene, but sadly he was pronounced dead at the scene. We know that So far, the victim hasn't been named, and of course, the police have not yet found the man responsible. They'll currently be combing the van that was dumped around 6 miles on from when the incident happened in a place called Belle-Isle near Leeds. The van collided with 2 vehicles, and it's believed that the driver, who is now being searched for, then fled the scene. It was a Ford Transit cargo vehicle that it was involved, and it was recovered a short time later, according to police. Amazon have released a statement. They've said it's a terrible incident and that their thoughts and deepest sympathies are with the delivery drivers, loved ones, family and colleagues, and that they'll do all they can to assist police in this investigation. The senior investigating officer as well for West Yorkshire Police, Detective Chief Inspector Whistle, has said that the investigation remains at an early stage, but based on what police currently know, it appears to be a truly shocking incident where the victim has been killed while going about his business as a parcel delivery driver. The police say that the family have been informed. They're completely devastated about what has happened, and that police are working to support them in this difficult time and doing everything that they can to try and get the answers that the family need, and that they're carrying out extensive inquiries to establish the full circumstances and identify the person whose incredibly dangerous actions have been responsible for causing his death. Police say that so far they've spoken to a number of witnesses, but are still keen to hear from people who witnessed the incident. The appeal covers the van being stolen in Alliance Street about 6:45 last night. The journey took it along to Heights Drive, where the victim was found. Its movements as it fled the scene there, and its movements before being found abandoned in Highlands Walk in Belle-Isle, which is around 6 miles away. So police asking for anybody with information to come forward, any witnesses, also any CCTV footage, dashcam footage that can help in this manhunt.
Thank you, Anna Riley. A murder inquiry underway there in Leeds, the tragic death of an Amazon delivery driver. Now, moving on, the Home Secretary has vowed to boot out more than 14,000 illegal immigrants by the end of the year. Now, if successful, it'll be the fastest deportation rate since 2018, when Theresa May was Prime Minister. Now, to achieve this, Labour are planning to deploy 100 more National Crime Agency operatives to bust the people smuggling gang. So, are Labour capable, after all, of stopping the boats, or are the measures simply not ambitious enough? Well, let's discuss this now with our Homeland Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, welcome to the show. So, Labour are threatening to kick 14,000 out by the end of the year. 19,000 have arrived already this year. And, Mark, there are at least 1 million illegal immigrants in the entire country. Is this enough?
Yeah, well, some estimates put it at 1.5 million working in the illegal economy in plain sight, but clearly with no right to be in the UK. And in terms of those who are put on these deportation flights, the enforced removals, the vast majority are not actually those that come across the English Channel, but they are people who have been caught with no right to remain in the UK, people who have either come in under a student, a work visa, a tourist visa and overstayed, or perhaps have come in some other route, or indeed they may be foreign national offenders. They make up a good proportion of those that are deported from the UK each year. Now, last year, for instance, the Conservative government deported some 7,000 people. That was up from 4,000 the year before. So for Yvette Cooper to promise 14,000 in the next 6 months, it is a significant number, and they're always up against the lawyers, the courts, who will potentially rule in favour of someone who challenges a government decision to try to remove them from the UK. The previous government had to suffer that. This government will see the same. The other thing, of course, is all about immigration enforcement and carrying out these raids on employers who are giving work to those who've no right to be here. Now, we were on a recent immigration raid on a scrapyard in East London. We can show you, hopefully, some of the images of that. And that shows you that this process has been underway for some time. Under the previous government and governments before, immigration enforcement have always been there, have always been acting and trying to remove those with no right to be here. But as we just said, Martin, just earlier on in the conversation, we're estimating 1.5 million people working illegally in this country. It is a phenomenal challenge for any government to undertake. Now, a little earlier, we've been speaking to the former Home Secretary, now the Shadow Home Secretary, James Cleverly, who believes that what Yvette Cooper has announced today doesn't go far enough.
The fact is their aspirations are too low, their energy is too low. The National Crime Agency, which said it needed a deterrent, and yet the first thing the government did upon entering office was to scrap that very deterrent. They still haven't recruited a commander for this phantom border command. And what we're seeing now is their rhetoric is falling apart, their actions are falling well below what the country needs.
Well, I think you got the gist of that anyway, Martin. One of the things that has been announced by the Home Secretary today is 100 new investigators for the National Crime Agency. Now, that will be of some use, of course, but these big, complex investigations that the National Crime Agency are involved in against organised crime groups on an international level require very big investigative resources, and 100 extra investigators actually doesn't go that far.
Mark White, I think that's a very diplomatic way of putting it. Over 1 million people, you said 1.5 million people at large in Britain, 100 people. Mark White, I've been to bigger barbecues. It's going to take a bit more than that to sort this mess out. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll speak to you hopefully in the next hour, or certainly throughout the rest of the week. Excellent as ever. Now, coming up next, you won't want to miss this, because I'm meeting in the studio the Blackpool grandad who's gone on hunger strike because he believes that this country is going to the dogs. He says he's prepared to die for his country. He's in the studio next. Don't miss it. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel. First, your headline.
Good afternoon. It's 4:30. I'm Cameron Walker here in the GB newsroom. And in some breaking news, the bodies of British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch and his daughter Hannah have been found in the yacht which sank off Sicily. That's according to the Daily Telegraph, although no formal identification has yet taken place. That means that 4 bodies have been recovered from the wreck of the super yacht this afternoon, which sank on Monday. This takes the death toll so far to 5. 2 people remain missing. The boat, owned by the wife of British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch, was carrying 22 passengers and crew and was anchored off the port of Porticello near Palermo when it capsized during that storm on Monday. A team of 4 British inspectors from the Marine Accident Investigation Branch has inspected the site. Police have launched a murder investigation after a delivery driver was involved in a collision during an attempted theft of his van. West Yorkshire Police says officers were called shortly before 7 p.m. yesterday following reports of a man found seriously injured in Wortley in Leeds. Officers found the victim unconscious. He was given emergency treatment but was pronounced dead at the scene a short time later. Police say the victim, who's in his 40s, had delivered a package to an address about half a mile away at 6:45 p.m. and had returned to his van to find a man attempting to steal it. When he tried to stop the offender, he drove off at speed, with the victim only partly in the passenger door of the vehicle. And some breaking news in the last half an hour or so. 4 people who died in a house fire in Bradford, including 3 children, have been named by West Yorkshire Police as 29-year-old Bryony Gaywith and Destiny, who's 9, Oscar, who was 5, and Aubrey Birtle, who was just 22 months old. A murder investigation's been launched after the incident which happened in the early hours of this morning on Westbury Road. Bryony Gaywith was pronounced dead at the scene, and all 3 children died later in hospital. A 39-year-old man was arrested at the scene on suspicion of murder and taken to hospital with critical injuries. And as you were just hearing, the Home Office has outlined plans to tackle illegal immigration, including deploying 100 new intelligence officers to target people smuggling gangs. The Home Secretary has announced the new measures to boost Britain's security and to target, dismantle and disrupt organised immigration crime networks. Yvette Cooper's also outlined the government has new plans for the next 6 months to achieve the highest rate of removals of those who don't have the rights to be in the UK, including failed asylum seekers. As part of its plan, the government says it will reopen immigration removal centres in Hampshire and Oxfordshire, adding 290 beds. Well, those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Cameron Walker. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there, time for the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Wet and windy, increasingly so in the northwest overnight, drier elsewhere, and for all of us it will be a relatively mild, if not warm, night to come. A couple of low pressure systems heading our way. The one to the south contains the remnants from ex-hurricane Ernesto, no longer a hurricane but containing a lot of tropical moisture, and that moisture resulting in a lot of rainfall across northwestern parts overnight, especially western Scotland, where there's a rain warning in force because of the risk in places of 100 to 150 millimetres of rain, especially West Highland and Skye, risk of localised flooding. Additionally, increasingly strong winds will affect Irish Sea coastal areas, the hills of northern England and southern Scotland, and some higher routes as well could be affected by those winds first thing. To the woods of southeast, largely dry overnight and during the morning on Thursday, if rather cloudy. By this stage, the rain is pushing into northern England, Wales and the southwest, but it's clearing from Scotland and Northern Ireland. Brighter skies follow, albeit with a scattering of showers into western Scotland, northern and western parts of Northern Ireland, interspersed by sunny spells. So a brighter day to come for Scotland and Northern Ireland, sunny spells and showers. England and Wales, meanwhile, again a lot of cloud cover, but this time with the band of rain sinking southeast, fizzling out as it pushes into the southeast, so light intermittent rain more than heavy and persistent wet weather. But it's going to feel cool with the breeze continuing into Thursday afternoon. Sunny spells to begin the evening across central parts, but increasingly cloudy and increasingly wet weather arrives from the west once again. An unsettled night and early Friday before that all clears to sunny spells and showers for the weekend.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm John Vincent. Queues on the M6 southbound in Cumbria. The entry slip road is closed along with 2 lanes on the main carriageway at junction 40 Penrith as a result of a vehicle fire. Very slow on the M60 clockwise near Manchester between junction 9 Trafford Park and 13 for Worsley. The M6 southbound in Warwickshire has been closed for an accident at junction 2 the M69. Queues back towards junction 3 for Nuneaton. The usual slow traffic for the M5 northbound in the West Midlands heading up towards the M6 at junction 8, estimated travel time around 20 minutes, and severe delays on the M1 northbound in Northamptonshire. 2 lanes closed for recovery work following an accident involving 3 lorries and a car between the Watford Gap services and junction 17 the M45. And that's the latest traffic and travel news.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It's 4:37. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. An incredible story for you next. A 78-year-old granddad from Blackpool is now 18 days into a hunger strike over the state of broken Britain. Paul Durant says he's prepared to fast as long as it takes until the current government, in his words, shows some common sense. And I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio now by Paul Durant. Paul, it's an absolute pleasure to have you in the studio. I saw your story in the local press. Very, very moved.
Thank you for having me here, Martin.
It's an absolute delight to have you in. You're a 78-year-old granddad from Blackpool. You're a hard-working British taxpayer all of your life. What on earth has driven you to go on this hunger strike?
I've been at the cenotaph in Blackpool since May. and I've been protesting against the illegal immigrants coming in, and the government's doing nothing. We have to get control of our borders. These people are throwing the passports away, the documentation, and they're here for years and years.
And what else has driven you to this protest? You had some grave concerns, didn't you, about the winter fuel allowance?
When the government came into power, they stopped the winter fuel allowance for the old age pensioners. It's not right. They some of them have got 2 houses. They're getting fuel allowances which we could only dream of. All we get is £300 to help us. It's not right. It's about 2 words, Martin, right and wrong. And this is definitely wrong.
And we can see pictures of you there. That's from your protest at the Cenotaph there in Blackpool. You with your pal there, Mark Butcher.
Mark asked me to come down here today to meet Ben Habib in London, who have been trying to persuade me to come off my hunger strike. I cannot come off my hunger strike because it's the only way I know of getting people to listen to the people of this country and what they are saying. The people of this country deserve the right to speak. We shouldn't be silenced. We shouldn't be told we can't do this, we can't do that. It's wrong. It's the same thing. It's wrong. They've got to, you know, things have got to get better. From Brexit, when it first started, nothing was done. Conservative government, nothing. Labour's in now, and don't hold your breath because nothing will be done again. We all know what's going to happen.
Now, Paul, you've been keeping your vigil in Blackpool since May. This is now the 18th day of your hunger strike. Before we get on to how you are and your well-being, because I've had hundreds and hundreds of messages from people who are very supportive, but they're concerned for your well-being. Before we get to that, can you tell me about some of the support you've had in Blackpool? People coming to talk to you, right?
Basically, I've had a lot of support from local people and holiday makers, and thank you for the support that you've given me.
What are they saying to you, Paul?
Mark Butcher has been a big help. Mark has introduced me to Ben Habib, who has given me a lot of confidence in what he says. The people that I speak to that come to the Cenotaph to see me are mainly family people who are, to be quite truthful, disgusted at what is going on. We are becoming a third world country in our own country. We have nowhere to go. I can't go and live in Libya or somewhere like that. It's just not rational. The people of this country have to come together and make a decision. Do you want to live under a tyrannical government, which seems to be what we're going to get? These people don't have any care or compassion for anybody. They seem to have their own agenda and want to go their own way to earning millions. And I don't think that's right.
Now, Paul, a lot of people will agree with that. A lot of people will say, in the face of those riots, the government had to make difficult decisions. But on to your well-being, you know, you're cracking on a bit. You know, I'm not being rude when I say that. You're 78. You've been 18 days in. I believe you've lost 1.5 stone.
I've lost a stone.
How are you feeling? And one of the things that I read in your local report there, you said, "I'm prepared to die for this."
I'm prepared.
If that's what it takes.
I am, Martin. I'm prepared to give my life for my country and all the children and the women of this country, because we cannot have some of the laws that this government is wanting to introduce. People are not having a say anymore. It's not right. We've got to do something. Keir Starmer has got to stop going off on his jaunts of wanting to make, how can I say, make the country knuckle down. You know, you can't do this, Mr. Starmer. It's ridiculous. We have to really come behind somebody, and I don't even know whether reform can help us. I hope they can. I hope reform will be the company that will bring the government that will bring us together when this, eventually we have another election and things get better. But honestly, I just don't understand where it's going to end.
OK, now the government will say, now, and let's be honest, you said before the Conservative government, you know, that they couldn't control our borders either. No. The Labour Party, they've only been in power a short period of time now. They've promised today they're going to try their very best to get to grips with this. Yeah. The riots were a very, very new circumstance. A lot of people will criticise them, but they have responded. They tried to end the rioting as quick as they could, just for a bit of balance in this conversation. Yeah. But aside from all of that, you know, if the Prime Minister were listening now, if anybody out there were listening now, what's your message to them, Paul?
Please take on board what the people of this country are saying. You didn't get into power with massive, massive figures. I'm not sure of the exact figures that voted for you, but it wasn't a lot. And I think next time you're going to get a really big eye-opener. I just want this country to be how it used to be. Please stop these boats coming in. When these people come in with no passports and no identification, send them all back. We can't have them here. They want to come in illegally.
OK, we have to leave it there, Paul. You make sure you stay safe, mate. I mean, you know,
I will stay safe.
A huge amount of people watching this will be, you know, very moved by a lot of what you said today.
I'd like to thank Mark Butcher, and I'd also like to thank Ben Habib and yourself, Martin.
Well, it's a pleasure to give you a voice, Paul. Put it there, mate. You stay safe, mate. Stay safe. Make sure you do.
I will.
Thank you very much, Paul Durant. Thank you for joining us in the studio. Now, next we'll be joined by Jacob Rees-Mogg, live from Somerset, who knew Mike Lynch, the tech entrepreneur, thought to be dead after a super yacht sunk off the coast of Italy. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Michael found the recipe for success without going to university. Instead, he went looking for answers inside of a kitchen. The 22-year-old has just finished a Level 2 course in professional cookery at UCB, a college in Birmingham.
When I started UCB, I was expecting to be so intense from day one, but it's not. It sort of builds up, so to the point where you get comfortable. And building that comfort is a huge part of becoming a chef, because you need to be comfortable being in your own skin.
This week, tens of thousands of students get their A-level results. The college wants them to remember university isn't the only option after school, and West Midlands Mayor Richard Parker agrees.
University is the right route for lots of our young people, but there are other pathways to getting access to qualifications that will give young people the skills they need to succeed in life.
Further education principal Rosa Wells says apprenticeships and technical courses are also great routes to a career.
Here at University College Birmingham, we offer vocational courses. These are hands-on technical courses that can give people a different opportunity, something different to school. So we've got brilliant facilities that really give students industry standard training.
A skills shortage across the UK means youngsters learning trades are desperately needed. 36% of job vacancies are due to shortages. The Labour government's new body, Skills England, has been created to bring training providers and businesses together with local and national authorities plus unions to target trade gaps and regional requirements. Michael's now finishing his qualification. Where he goes next is down to him.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark Dolan and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 4:48. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now back to the breaking news. The report suggests that bodies found on the British super yacht that sunk earlier this week include tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch and his daughter. Rescue divers have recovered another 2 bodies from the super yacht that sank off Sicily earlier this week, taking that now total to 5 bodies found. That includes the ship's chef. 4 bodies have been recovered today. Well, joining me now is GB News presenter and the former Conservative MP, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, who knew Mike Lynch. Sir Jacob, the news that nobody wanted to hear, especially those who knew Mike Lynch. It appears now the body has been identified as that of Mike Lynch and his daughter.
Yes, it's very sad news, desperately sad for the family, and just such awful news considering he'd been through this terrible experience with the US justice system, an innocent man who suffered from a long-running extradition case, was finally acquitted, and then while celebrating his freedom, has sadly, as far as we know, died. I just feel so desperately sorry for his family. I met him in the context of his battle with the US justice system, and that's what I'll be talking about in my programme this evening, because there seems to be so little protection for British citizens who are unjustly accused, who we seem happy to send to the United States without requiring a prima facie case to be made. And so I will be paying tribute to him later. He was a strong, brave man who stood out against injustice. And I'll be talking to Sir David Davis, who knew him much better than I did.
Now, Sir Jacob, shortly after that acquittal, when he was cleared, there was a very moving interview. He very rarely gave interviews, Mike Lynch, and he said, "Now I have a second life. The question is what to do with it." And that has been cut so short by this freak occurrence off the coast of Sicily. And many people say that he'll go on to be remembered as a genius, as an entrepreneur, as a truly magnificent brain in business too.
He was. I mean, he was an enormously successful businessman, but he was also doing something even more important, and that is campaigning for justice, which is the context in which I met him, because of the desperately unfair way in which he was pursued through the courts as an innocent man. And I think this is just so sad for his family, and one's heart goes out to them. Not only has he died, but his daughter's died as well. And I just think this is the saddest news, and we must all pray for the repose of the souls of those who have died and for the comfort of those who have survived.
As Jacob, we saw live pictures at the top of this show of the search and recovery vessel coming ashore, carrying one of the bodies, now believed to be the body of Mike Lynch, into a forensic tent. That's where we believe he is currently resting. A very, very tragic end to a glorious, trailblazing life.
Indeed, and a man of great charm and modesty that when I met him in relation to his extradition, he wasn't a swaggering businessman. He was a man of calm and modesty, and I'm sure he will be remembered by all who knew him as a model human being.
And Sir Jacob, moving on to other matters now. Of course, you're chairing your show from Somerset, State of the Nation. That's 8 until 9 p.m. here on GB News, as well as reflecting with Sir David Davis on the life and the case of Mike Lynch. What else is on your show?
Yes, well, that's primarily to talk about the unbalanced extradition treaty between the United Kingdom and the US. And you will remember that an American spy who ran over a motorcyclist wasn't extradited when innocent Britons have been. We'll also be talking about the news from America in relation to the Democrat convention and a return of the hopey-changey thing. Well, last time round, the hopey-changey thing was pretty hopeless, and I think the same would be true again. Hopey-changey is not a satisfactory way to govern, as was discovered when Mr. Obama was in charge, and Mrs. Obama saying that's what Kamala Harris brings, I think should fill us all with trepidation.
Yeah, and of course, very much an anointment, a coronation. The Democratic Party had scant democracy in electing, though it didn't elect Kamala Harris at all, did they? Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, quick comment on that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that parties that call themselves democratic very often aren't. It's like states that call themselves democratic. Isn't North Korea the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea? It's always the way. Call yourself democratic and it turns out you're not.
OK, State of the Nation tonight, 8 till 9 p.m. So Jacob Rees-Mogg, thanks very much for joining us. Now, still to come, the Labour Party plan to deport 14,000 illegal migrants and foreign criminals by the end of the year. Is that possible? I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel. Now's your weather with Alex Burkill.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, time for the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Wet and windy, increasingly so in the northwest overnight, drier elsewhere, and for all of us it will be a relatively mild, if not warm, night to come. A couple of low pressure systems heading our way. The one to the south contains the remnants from ex-hurricane Ernesto, no longer a hurricane but containing a lot of tropical moisture, and that moisture resulting in a lot of rainfall across northwestern parts overnight, especially western Scotland, where there's a rain warning in force because of the risk in places of 100 to 150 millimetres of rain, especially West Highland and Skye, risk of localised flooding. Additionally, increasingly strong winds will affect Irish Sea coastal areas, the hills of northern England and southern Scotland, and some higher routes as well could be affected by those winds first thing. To the woods of southeast, largely dry overnight and during the morning on Thursday, if rather cloudy. By this stage, the rain is pushing into northern England, Wales and the southwest, but it's clearing from Scotland and Northern Ireland. Brighter skies follow, albeit with a scattering of showers into western Scotland, northern and western parts of Northern Ireland, interspersed by sunny spells. So a brighter day to come for Scotland and Northern Ireland, sunny spells and showers. England and Wales, meanwhile, again a lot of cloud cover, but this time with the band of rain sinking southeast, fizzling out as it pushes into the southeast, so light intermittent rain more than heavy and persistent wet weather. But it's going to feel cool with the breeze continuing into Thursday afternoon. Sunny spells to begin the evening across central parts, but increasingly cloudy and increasingly wet weather arrives from the west once again. An unsettled night and early Friday before that all clears to sunny spells and showers for the weekend.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm John Vincent. Delays on the M6 southbound in Cumbria. The entry slip road is closed and 2 lanes are closed on the main carriageway at junction 40 Penrith. It's all due to a vehicle fire. So we're also seeing slow traffic on surrounding routes. Slow for the M60 clockwise in Manchester between junction 9 Trafford Park and 12 the Eccles interchange. Long delays on the M6 southbound in Warwickshire due to an earlier accident at junction 2 the M69, although all lanes have been reopened. Queues on the M25 anti-clockwise in Hertfordshire. There's a lane closed for recovery work for a broken down vehicle around junction 24 Potters Bar. Severe delays on the M1 northbound in Northamptonshire due to an earlier accident between the Watford Gap services and junction 17 for the M45. The accident happened in the roadworks area. And that's the latest traffic and travel news.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours, but time is ticking. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes, she could have said Stum. You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News, broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster, all across the UK. On today's show, the grim discovery. Reports that tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch and his daughter Hannah, 18, are among the 5 bodies recovered from the underwater wreck of the super yacht. And we'll be live from Sicily with the latest live pictures, as you can see on your screen there. Next up, the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has promised to deport 14,000 illegal immigrants and foreign criminals by the end of the year. But with over 19,000 arriving via dinghies so far this year and well over 1.5 million already in Britain, is this, once again, a government talking tough in the face of an immigration crisis it simply cannot stop. And the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is warning hard-pressed Brits to brace themselves for tax hikes after Labour borrowed £3 billion extra in July to bankroll public sector pay rises. And that could mean that every British taxpayer has to cough up an extra £878 every single year. That's all coming in your next hour. Once the show, always a pleasure to have your company. So it's now confirmed that the 4 bodies recovered today, 2 of them are indeed that of the tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch and his daughter Hannah. We had live pictures at 3 o'clock of one of those bodies being brought ashore. We'll have a full update from Sicily. Our man Adam Cherry is there, and also a conversation about tax rises. £3 billion the Labour Party has had to borrow in extra money to pay public sector workers and their union buddies. That means tax rises for you at the same time as pensioners having their winter fuel allowance cut. Is that fair? Is that what you want to see in modern Britain? You know what to do. gbnews.com/your say is how you get in touch. I'll read out the best of your comments before the end of the show. But now it's your headlines with Cameron Walker.
Thanks, Martin. Good afternoon. It's 2 minutes past 5. I'm Cameron Walker here in the GB newsroom. And as you have been hearing, the bodies of British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch and his daughter Hannah have been found in the yacht which sank off Sicily. That's according to the Daily Telegraph. No formal identification has taken place yet. 4 bodies have been recovered from the wreck of the super yacht this afternoon, which sank on Monday. This takes the death toll so far to 5, 2 people are still missing. The boat, owned by the wife of British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch, was carrying 22 passengers and crew and was anchored off the port of Porticello near Palermo when it capsized during that storm on Monday. A team of 4 British inspectors from the Marine Accident Investigation Branch have inspected the site. Police have launched a murder investigation after an attempted theft of a delivery van. The incident happened last night in the Wortley area of Leeds. GB News reporter Anna Riley is at the scene and sent this report.
A police cordon remains in place here at Heights Drive in Wortley near Leeds after a man was pronounced dead at the scene. He's not yet been named, but he was a delivery driver delivering Amazon parcels here on the street when at 6:45 last night there was an attempted theft of his delivery van. It's believed that he held onto the passenger door of the van as the attempted theft was taking place.
GB News reporter Anna Riley there. Now, 4 people who died in a house fire in Bradford, including 3 children, have been named by West Yorkshire Police this afternoon. It's 29-year-old Bryony Gowith and Destiny, who was 9, Oscar, who was 5, and Aubrey Birtle, who was just 22 months old. A murder investigation has been launched after the incident, which happened in the early hours of this morning on Westbury Road. Bryony Gowith was pronounced dead at the scene, and all 3 children died later in hospital. A 39-year-old man was arrested at the scene on suspicion of murder and was also taken to hospital with critical injuries. Superintendent Lucy Leadbeater believes the fire was started on purpose.
Whilst inquiries are at their early stages, we believe that the fire was started deliberately and this incident was domestic related. I would appeal to anyone who was in the Westbury Road area at the time of the incident who has CCTV or doorbell footage to come forward.
The Home Office has outlined plans to tackle illegal immigration, including deploying 100 new intelligence officers to target people smuggling gangs. The Home Secretary even has announced the new measures to boost Britain's security and to target, dismantle and disrupt organised immigration crime networks. Yvette Coopers also outlines the government has new plans for the next 6 months to achieve the highest rate of removals of those who don't have the right to be in the UK, including failed asylum seekers. As part of its plan, the government says this will reopen immigration removal centres in Hampshire and Oxfordshire, adding 290 beds. The Shadow Home Secretary, James Cleverly, suggests the Labour government isn't doing enough.
The fact is their aspirations are too low, their energy is too low. The National Crime Agency, which said it needed a deterrent, and yet the first thing the government did upon entering office was to scrap that very deterrent. They still haven't recruited a commander for this phantom border command. And what we're seeing now is their rhetoric is falling apart, their actions are falling well below what the country needs.
A Pakistani web developer is facing a criminal charge over claims he helped spread misinformation about the accused Southport attacker. Documents shared exclusively with GB News show that 32-year-old Faram Asif has been charged with cyber terrorism after false claims quickly spread online that this suspect accused of killing 3 young girls was a Muslim immigrant to the UK. Pakistani police say that Asif claims he's not the original source of the false information, but reposted it from social media. And official figures show the rising cost of public services and benefits caused government borrowing last month to surge on the year before. Borrowing hit £3.1 billion last month, around £1.8 billion more than in July last year. The increase means borrowing has hit its highest level for the month since 2021. The Office for National Statistics also revealed the UK's national debt remained at its highest level since the early 1960s. And European brown bears and bongos and red-billed hornbill have been measured today during the annual weigh-in at Whipsnade Zoo in Bedfordshire. It's an important part of their care. Keeping track of the creature's vital statistics helps zookeepers and vets keep track of the health and well-being of all the animals at the Conservation Zoo. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Cameron Walker. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Cameron. Now back to the breaking news that the bodies of the British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch and his daughter Hannah have been found in the yacht which sank off Sicily, and that's according to sources at the Daily Telegraph. Now, no formal identification has yet taken place. And let's cross now to Sicily and speak to GB News' reporter Adam Cherry. Adam, so a couple of hours ago now we saw that search and recovery vessel coming ashore. We saw one body carried ashore, and now we know 4 bodies recovered from that yacht today, and just confirmed a short while ago, according to the Telegraph, it was indeed the body of Mike Lynch and his daughter Hannah.
Yeah, we haven't had that officially confirmed by the authorities. They have the official process where they discuss this with the families first. Of course, family and friends, we understand, are in a nearby village here on the island still. But it does appear, yes, that those bodies found, and 2 of them were of Michael Lynch and his 18-year-old daughter Hannah, and then along with 2 others who, as of yet, remain unidentified. Authorities are still searching for the remaining 2 people on board the vessel. We saw live footage earlier. In fact, you're seeing footage now from the harbour. There are a couple of vessels out at sea at the moment exploring, as they have been throughout the day. It's interesting, it was relatively quiet today, to be honest. Not many people observing. Obviously, emergency personnel on the harbour, but quieter than yesterday until about 2 hours ago, when suddenly dozens of new ambulances and emergency personnel arrived on the scene. And that was when we knew that this was escalating very, very quickly. Actually, I was walking back along the shore just after I spoke to you within the last hour, and 4 or 5 more ambulances and police cars arrived in that moment as well. So it is still ongoing. They're not giving up, trying to find those last 2. Of course, there is hope that perhaps there's an air pocket that is sustaining life, but that hope is very quickly extinguishing, unfortunately, at this point, Martin.
And we spoke to a local journalist a short while ago, Adam. We can see on screen now that forensic tent at the right of our images there. That's where we saw the body carried into earlier. He said that that body will stay in there as the identification process is carried out. And he also said that the search and recovery mission will continue. Last night, he told us there was one as late as 11 p.m. because, as you just said, so importantly, Adam Cherry, there are two bodies still unaccounted for, and that most likely means that they are down there. So this is very much an ongoing mission.
Yeah, it's still ongoing. There are investigators here trying to find out why this happened, of course. The priority is finding those 2, but then questions will need to be asked. I actually spoke to a fisherman, a local, within the last hour, who says he was here on the night of that sinking and witnessed the storm arrive and disappear. He says within 10 minutes. He said it was extraordinary. Perfectly calm night. Suddenly, the storm and the tornado hit, and then no sooner had it arrived, it was gone. Which might explain why this all happened so quickly and why it was unprepared for, because this is just so extraordinary. It doesn't happen. The town is reeling from this, and you can feel it as you speak to people here. It's shocking. They have never seen anything like it, and it is a black swan event, as is being described.
And Adam Cherry, as you said, at the marina there were, you said, literally hundreds of other vessels safely moored at the shore. And so will questions be asked, do we think, as this rolls forward about why this super yacht was moored offshore in the night? Reports coming in that there had been 19 similar tornado waterspout events in the area prior to this tragic one hitting the super yacht.
Yeah, but as I said, those events may be relatively common, say 19, but something of this scale just doesn't happen. So the captain of the ship was an experienced captain who knew these seas well. It's just a freak accident. They left hatches and windows open. This is the going theory. A huge a huge wave blows into the vessel through those openings and sinks it almost instantly. That's the going theory. Of course, we'll find out more in due course with these investigations.
OK, Adam Cherry, thank you for that update live from Sicily, and no doubt we'll be crossing back to you throughout the rest of the evening as more information emerges. Adam Cherry, thank you. Now, moving on, the Home Secretary has vowed to boot out more than 14,000 illegal immigrants by the end of the year. Now, if successful, it'll be the fastest deportation rate since 2018, when Theresa May, remember her, was the Prime Minister. Well, to achieve this, Labour are planning to deploy 100 more National Crime Agency operatives to bust the people smuggling gangs. So, are the Labour Party capable, after all, of stopping the boats, or are the measures not nearly ambitious enough? Well, to chew it over, I'm joined in our studio by our political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, so Stop the Boats has become Smash the Gangs. We were waiting for some detail. A mighty 100 officers have been assigned to this to crack down on 14,000, but I put it to you, 19,000 have arrived this year already via small boats. And when we spoke to our Home and Security editor, Mark White, earlier in the show, he said it's about 1.5 million potential illegal immigrants are in this country at present. 14,000 to drop in the ocean.
It is rather, and the Border Security Command, we are expecting and waiting for a leader to be established for that. 6 weeks, still no leader. Stuart Skeets, the general who had been running the operation down there in Dover, he quit after the election. We're waiting to find out someone to replace that. So they've dropped the Rwanda plan. To remind viewers and listeners, that was deporting legally arrived migrants from here to Rwanda and basically leaving them there, not allowing them back to the UK. That was dropped as a gimmick, despite the fact the Tories had flights ready to go. It was all in train, and hundreds of millions of pounds of our money spent on readying Rwanda to receive those migrants. The new idea is to be more aggressive with working with law enforcement of those on the continent. Confusion here about whether we're going to get anywhere near the 2018 level. It looks like the government itself, the Tory government, beat the 2018 numbers of deportations in 2023, so there's some dispute about that. The rate might be quicker, but the overall number for the year won't be much better. And we are basically only going back to where we were in 2023, or anyway, if we get there, with this Labour government. So, yes, 100 new intelligence officers in the NCA is something, but it's nowhere near, I think, the scale of the resource we thought was coming. We thought 1,000 new officials in the returns unit, for example. That hasn't happened yet. So, yeah, things are just ticking on, but we're nowhere near stopping the boats, as you asked.
I've got to say, Chris, 100... I've been to bigger barbecues, but I digress. Tony Blair said before the election, make no mistakes, Sir Keir Starmer has to get a grip on immigration, and particularly illegal immigration. But, Chris, the same obstacles will await the Labour Party that awaited the Conservative Party with Rwanda. The same lawyers, the same NGOs, the same activists will try and derail it, surely.
It did look like Rwanda, the idea of Rwanda was working. We saw evidence, anecdotal, admittedly, from migrants in the north of France not crossing to the UK. They thought they might go to Rwanda if they did. And then in Northern Ireland, moving from Northern Ireland to Southern Ireland to avoid going to Rwanda. So to a degree, we're not sure how much, and we'll never know because Labour's axed the plan. And their new plan, well, it's just getting started. We are only 6 weeks into a government, by the way. It's baby steps. They're getting started, you know, and they have completely changed course in policy as soon as they won the election on the 4th, 5th of July. So we're not there yet, but as things stand, this won't really do enough to stop the boats.
OK, thank you, Chris. And let's continue this conversation because I'm now joined by the immigration barrister at Imperium Chambers, and that's Paul Turner. Paul, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you on. So 100 officers, not going to strike fear into the people smuggling gangs, a mighty 100 taking on at least 1.5 million people in the country illegally already. Is this enough?
Clearly not. As Chris was saying, that they were talking about 1,000 extra people going into immigration enforcement. 1,000 people might make a difference. In my experience, and I've seen some enforcement visits, they're quite labour intensive, and they can have a good effect on the community in making people aware of the fact that they shouldn't be there. But they would take perhaps 7 or 8 immigration officers to actually attend, accompanied by the police. So that's about 12 extra visits a day. So I don't actually think it's going to make much difference. I'm quite disappointed, really, that that we've had that Rwanda was dropped, and looking at Rwanda, the figures since it's been dropped of small boat crossings is actually down. So query whether it was actually deterrent. But it's one of those things we'll never know because it was never put into force. But where we're at today is it's a pretty poor announcement. And then the figure itself of 14,000 or so and back to the 2018 level. Well, the 2018 level just before the pandemic was the lowest figure for 20 years of people being removed from the United Kingdom who are not here. And as you touched upon, it's well known or well regarded that there are about 1 million people in the United Kingdom who have overstayed their visas or who have entered illegally and haven't brought themselves to the attention of the authorities. And they're obviously not doing anything other than perhaps working illegally and keeping their heads down. So with regards to the 19,000 people that crossed by a small boat this year, it's not going to make much difference. And even if they obtain the 14,000 target or they hit it, if there's 50 or 60,000 people claiming asylum each year, then all you're going to have is a bigger and bigger backlog.
OK, Paul, can I put the same question to you that I posed to Chris Hope, our political editor, a moment ago? And that is this. The same barriers will face Yvette Cooper and the Labour Party that face Rishi Sunak's Conservative Party and their Rwanda scheme, as in the same human rights lawyers will be trying to block this, the same NGOs, the same charities, perhaps even the civil service themselves. Paul Turner, do you think that even with all the best will in the world, that this will actually lead to deportations? Or will the entire machine of resistance try and derail this, as they tried to derail and succeeded in derailing Rwanda?
Well, it's an optimistic target. And you are right that the immigration lawyers, who often are acting in the best interest of their clients, some of them aren't, some of them are acting in their best interest of themselves, will do everything possible to hopefully lawfully frustrate any removal, but they will be working in the best interest of their clients. And the best interests of their clients are not necessarily to be removed from the United Kingdom. But there's one other thing, Martin, which is not being talked about, which is that I was looking at the figures for the small boat crossings, and the main country from where they come is Afghanistan. And the numbers are up 36%, 5,500 people from Afghanistan this year. But they can employ 1 million immigration enforcement officers. Unless they're going to use those enforcement officers to invade Afghanistan and put in a different government, nobody is returning anybody to Afghanistan in the near future. And nobody's saying anything about that.
Well, Paul Turner, that's a great point, except Germany has taken the unprecedented option of having that precise conversation. Germany has said Afghan asylum seekers who are causing trouble, we're going to send them back to Afghanistan. And that means having a conversation with Al-Qaeda. Paul Turner, that's not going to happen any time this side of a miracle with the Labour Party. We all know full well that Afghanistan and a host of other countries will be considered unsafe, and the human rights lawyers will know what cards to lay down to make sure their clients are prevented from going back to those unsafe countries, even though they came from France. Paul Turner, Chris Hope, our political editor, had a bet with Rishi Sunak, a single pint of beer, that not a single flight would take off for Rwanda. Chris Hope won that pint. I want to bet you, Paul Turner, a single pint of beer. Do you think we'll see 14,000 deportations before the year is out? Yes or no?
Well, I fancy your pint of beer, so I'm going to take you up on that. And the reason why is I think they're going to go for soft removals to countries such as Albania. But I tell you what, in 1st of January, we'll see who's buying who a drink.
Well, Paul Turner, luckily for you, I don't have a dry January. I'll be taking your beer and I'll be chasing it down with a whiskey as well. Paul, I admire your optimism. I really, really do. And I hope to see you in the new year, at which point I'll gladly sup your ale. Paul Turner, immigration barrister at Imperium Chambers, thank you very much for coming on the show. Now, are phone repair shops ruining the look of our high streets? Well, people in Reading aren't remotely happy. Guess what? They've got 20 in their town centre. I'm about to be joined by a journalist who's investigated this. There's something fishy going on every high street in Britain. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
A new 9-storey high mural celebrating Jewish life in Britain's capital has been unveiled in Finchley Road. The mural's artist, Leon Fenster, joins me now. Leon, welcome to GB News. Congratulations on the work. Tell me a little bit about the concept and how you put it together.
Well, all of my artworks are kind of essentially storytelling. So trying to pull back the curtain on some specific world that I can reveal, whether that's the world of a particular family, of a community, of an organisation, of a city. And in this case, the challenge was how to depict in a single artwork the entire story of Jews in the city of London. I don't really plan too much. I start somewhere, one thing leads to the next, to the next, to the next, the way we remember the world in our dreams and our memories. And then after a few months, it was ready and we put it up onto the wall.
Give me an idea of the dimensions of this thing. We've talked about it being 7 stories high.
Right.
It also looks like it's pretty broad.
The wall is 14 metres wide and it's to the top of the artwork is 26 metres. So definitely my largest yet, I would say.
I didn't know Benjamin Disraeli had a bar mitzvah.
He did not. He made a point of not having one. These artworks, there's this kind of mischievous sense of humour. So actually, Benjamin Disraeli's father left Bevis Mark Synagogue after an argument and immediately had his children baptised. Yes. Just a couple of months before Benjamin Disraeli's bar mitzvah would have been. So I'm sort of slightly cheekily imagining him finally getting to have the bar mitzvah he never had. He might not be too happy about this, to be honest.
Because after all, Benjamin Disraeli would not have been Prime Minister in that era.
Quite.
Has he been willing to attest to the Church of England?
That's right, absolutely. So that's why there's something slightly cheeky about it. Exactly.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 5:26. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, have you noticed that our high streets seem to be absolutely clogged with businesses with frank few customers inside them? Barber shops, nail salons and now mobile phone shops. Well, one GB News viewer became so intrigued by the boom in mobile phone shops in her hometown in Reading, she counted 20 of them. So why does that town need so many phone shops, I wonder? How do they all survive with such rigorous competition? And are they ruining the look of our high streets? Or is something altogether fishier going on? I'm joined in the studio now by political commentator Jess Gill in the studio, who made that fantastic video. And I think we've got a clip of it now. Shall we have a quick look at 30 seconds of this video so we know what we're all talking about?
According to my phone, there are 20 phone shops in Reading. I'm here to find out how they survive with such rigorous competition and how they add to the vibrant community that is Reading. So in Reading Town Centre, there are about 20 phone repair shops and vape shops. Why do you think there are so many?
Well, the vape shops are very popular, I would say, and then the repair shops is just, I guess, like an easy thing to set up, and I guess you can just outdo someone. But I haven't really been to one. A lot of mobile phones about.
Yes, a super piece of mischief making, but you're asking a serious question, a question that a lot of people who get in touch with us here at GB News ask themselves about barbers' shops, about nail salons, about all sorts of shops, chicken shops. What specifically prompted you to make this video?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. So I was on Reading High Street, which is where I'm currently living. I'm originally from Bolton. And I just noticed on one street, I think it's called Smelly Alley originally for some reason. And there's just shop after shop after shop selling phone repairs and vapes. Very cheap phones as well, suspiciously cheap phones. And so I thought I can't be the only one realising this is a bit suspicious. I don't know what's going on exactly, but, you know, the free market shows there should be competition. There shouldn't be this amount of shops, 20 shops selling the same thing, and a lot of them are empty most of the time as well. It's incredibly suspicious.
And so you put this out as a question on social media. It had a huge response. How many people interacted?
Yeah, around 1 million impressions, I think, and loads of replies, many of them assuming it was money laundering. Obviously, we have no concrete proof of that. But again, it is very suspicious that there are so many shops and no customers in them most of the time.
And that's something that's also been echoed by the Home Office, by Metropolitan Police officers about barbers' shops. We know they're used for fronts for criminal gangs to conceal human trafficking, slave labour, drugs, money laundering. This is irrefutable. There have been all sorts of investigations. Former Metropolitan Police officer Ali Hassan said to us, while in some cases the shops will be involved in legitimate business, and no doubt some of those mobile phone shops in Reading are doing a thriving business on that basis too. From my own experience, he said there is a strong reason to believe a large number, particularly those owned by Albanians, Turks and Kurds, have links to organised crime. Now, you pose some of these questions to people on the high street there in Reading. They seem quite reluctant to address the elephant in the room about this, but off camera or people that you've been speaking to, a lot of people across Britain are saying something fishy seems to be going on.
Yeah, I think there is this general sense of Britain is declining. The high street is no longer a sense of community, a sense where there's local independent stores, you know, thriving, and it's a good sense of community there. Now it's just this corporate blob with some, quite frankly, seemingly dodgy shops in the way. And I'm not sure if they really clock on what the actual issue is, but I think they can sense there's a problem. And in all honesty, I think a lot of people have just, you know, turned away from it, just not gone to the high street. A lot of my friends and their parents have just avoided it, but they can't actually face what the real issue is, and they refuse to address it.
And I wonder if part of the problem, Jess, is that because the high streets are so hollowed out and so vacant, they're much more receptive to any old business that kind of knocks on their door and offers them cash up front.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of it as well is just a preference of these companies, these shops, because I remember researching about the history of Reading and Smelly Alley, which I referred to in the past just then. It was a place, it was a bit like, it wasn't the best place, but there were like independent shops. There was like some kind of like cheese deli kind of thing, which locals loved. And the landlord shut them down within like, you know, days. I think they gave them a 7 days notice for them to go away. And now that shop is just a phone shop, a phone repair shop, as if we need another one of those.
Superb stuff, Jess Gill, and thanks for making that video. And let's have a chat after the show about, I think you should be doing plenty more of this mischief making. It's great citizen journalism. Thank you for sharing it with us here on GB News. Now, there's lots more still to come between now and 6 o'clock, including the Obamas endorse Kamala Harris overnight, and we'll go live to Chicago ahead of her big speech as the US presidential battle heats up. But first, it's time for your headlines with Cameron Walker.
Good afternoon. It's 5:31. I'm Cameron Walker here in the GB newsroom. The bodies of British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch and his daughter Hannah have been found in the yacht which sank off Sicily, according to the Daily Telegraph. No formal identification has yet taken place. 4 bodies have been recovered from the wreck of the super yacht this afternoon, which sank on Monday. This takes the death toll so far to 5. 2 people are still missing. The boat was owned by Mike Lynch's wife and was carrying 22 passengers and crew. It was anchored off the port of Porticello near Palermo when it capsized during a storm. Police have launched a murder investigation after a delivery driver was involved in a collision during an attempted theft of his van. West Yorkshire Police says officers were called shortly before 7 p.m. yesterday following reports of a man found seriously injured in Wortley in Leeds. Officers found the victim unconscious. He was given emergency treatment but was pronounced dead at the scene a short time later. Police say the victim, in his 40s, had delivered a package to an address about half a mile away at around 6:45 p.m. and had returned to his van to find a man attempting to steal it. When he tried to stop the offender, he drove off at speed with the victim only partly in the passenger door of the vehicle. 4 people who died in a house fire in Bradford, including 3 children, have been named by West Yorkshire Police as 29-year-old Bryony Gwyth and Destiny, who was 9, Oscar, who was 5, and Aubrey Birtle, who was just 22 months old. A murder investigation has been launched after the incident, which happened in the early hours of this morning on Westbury Road. Police believe the fire was started deliberately and was a domestic incident. Bryony Gwyth was pronounced dead at the scene, and all 3 children died later in hospital. A 39-year-old man was arrested at the scene on suspicion of murder and taken to hospital with critical injuries. And the Home Office has outlined plans to tackle illegal immigration, including deploying 100 new intelligence officers to target people smuggling gangs. The Home Secretary has announced the new measures to boost Britain's security and to target, dismantle and disrupt organised migrant crime networks. Yvette Cooper's also outlined the government has new plans for the next 6 months to achieve the highest rate of removals of those who don't have the rights to be in the UK, including failed asylum seekers. As part of its plan, the government says it will reopen immigration removal centres in Hampshire and Oxfordshire, which will add 290 beds. The Shadow Home Secretary, however, James Cleverly, suggests the Labour government isn't doing enough. Well, those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Cameron Walker. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Well, here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pounds will buy you $1.3072 and €1.1735. The price of gold is at £1,915.47 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 8,281.97 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Cameron. Now, earlier in the show, I was joined in the studio by the Blackpool grandfather, Paul Durant, 78-year-old, 18 days into a hunger strike over what he believes is a broken Britain. Hundreds of you have been getting in touch. A quick one now from Jules, who said this: so moved by what Paul Durant said on your show today, Martin, but it's not worth him going this far and losing his life over it. I really hope he changes his mind. It's so sad, but our political class simply don't seem to care about white working-class pensioners in Britain. Jules, thank you for your message, and thank you for all the others that came in. I'll make sure they get passed on to Paul. Now, my favourite part of the show, I'm joined now by Michelle Jubilee, the queen of primetime political debates. Here she is, Jubes & Co. What's on your menu?
Hello, Martin. What an incredible story you've just been sharing. I mean, the state of this nation, that's what I want to talk about again tonight. I mean, you know, I've seen you cover it, that story about that delivery driver. I remember a time where people used to, if they were indeed going to try and steal stuff, they'd try and wait till it was dark or quiet, there was no one around, they'd be hiding themselves. These days, criminals just seem to be so brazen doing this stuff when it's broad daylight, rocking up to a Greggs with a bag for life, helping themselves, not caring who watches. I want to ask what's going on there. I also want to look at Yvette Cooper's new plans when it comes to immigration. Will that work or not? Foreign aid, prisons. We'll be talking about it all tonight. I've got Matt Goodwin and Zoe Grundveld keeping me company.
A meaty menu. I'll be interested in what Matt Goodwin thinks about a mighty 100 people trying to get rid of 1.5 million illegal immigrants in this country. Michelle Jubilee, I've been to bigger barbecues, and I know you've been to bigger lunches. Jubes & Co, 6 till 7, right after me. Superb as ever. Now, if you want to get in touch with me here at GB News, simply go to gbnews.com/your say. And I'll try my very best to read out the best of your messages before the end of the show. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, time for the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Wet and windy, increasingly so in the northwest overnight, drier elsewhere, and for all of us it will be a relatively mild, if not warm, night to come. A couple of low pressure systems heading our way. The one to the south contains the remnants from ex-hurricane Ernesto, no longer a hurricane but containing a lot of tropical moisture, and that moisture resulting in a lot of rainfall across northwestern parts overnight, especially western Scotland, where there's a rain warning in force because of the risk in places of 100 to 150 millimetres of rain, especially West Highland and Skye, risk of localised flooding. Additionally, increasingly strong winds will affect Irish Sea coastal areas, the hills of northern England and southern Scotland, and some higher routes as well could be affected by those winds first thing. To the woods of southeast, largely dry overnight and during the morning on Thursday, if rather cloudy. By this stage, the rain is pushing into northern England, Wales and the southwest, but it's clearing from Scotland and Northern Ireland. Brighter skies follow, albeit with a scattering of showers into western Scotland, northern and western parts of Northern Ireland, interspersed by sunny spells. So a brighter day to come for Scotland and Northern Ireland, sunny spells and showers. England and Wales, meanwhile, again a lot of cloud cover, but this time with the band of rain sinking southeast, fizzling out as it pushes into the southeast, so light intermittent rain more than heavy and persistent wet weather. But it's going to feel cool with the breeze continuing into Thursday afternoon. Sunny spells to begin the evening across central parts, but increasingly cloudy and increasingly wet weather arrives from the west once again. An unsettled night and early Friday before that all clears to sunny spells and showers for the weekend.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Johnny Ratner. Problems in Cumbria on the M6. The southbound entry slip road is closed at junction 40, the A66 exit for Penrith, of course, with 2 lanes closed on the main carriageway. A lorry caught fire with long queues back to 41 at Cargate and through Penrith as you've been diverting, particularly for the A6. Just southeast of Birmingham city centre, the A45 Small Heath Highway, that's been closed near Poets Corner after a lorry struck a bridge this morning. Really slow heading north up the M1 through Northamptonshire, not being helped by roadworks, of course, just south of the M45 near the Watford Gap services. But there was a collision on that stretch further down near Toaston, not helping matters. On the Essex stretch of the M25, the 2 inside lanes are 4 closed clockwise from the M11 to the A12, where a car is on fire, and buses in for London North Western trains, Bedford to Bletchley, because of a staff shortage. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It's 5:40. We're on the final furlong. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, the Democratic National Convention is well underway in Chicago. And we've already seen Barack and Michelle Obama speak in support of the Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris, while also taking a major aim at Donald Trump.
There's the childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, this weird obsession with crowd sizes. The other day I heard someone compare Trump to the neighbor who keeps running his leaf blower outside your window every minute of every day.
Well, they can't resist putting the boot into the Don, can they? And tonight, Kamala Harris's running mate, Tim Walz, will address the crowds, making his pitch to be the next Vice President of the United States. Well, with more on this is US political analyst Eric Ham, great fan of the show, who's in Chicago for the convention outside there. Eric, absolutely delighted to have you on live on the ground. Tell us, look, let's have a quick look back about the Obamas last night and a quick look ahead to tonight.
Sure. In fact, we heard from both of the Obamas last night, and when you saw them speak, you certainly understood why they are seen as Democratic royalty. The crowd went crazy. In fact, it felt more like a rock concert hearing and listening to Michelle and Barack Obama than political speeches. The stadium behind me was completely packed. The audience was energized. They were frenetic. And the vibes were just amazing. And of course, we saw and heard the zingers from both Michelle and Barack Obama regarding Donald Trump. But also, too, what they did was they implored the audience to not only go out and vote, but also to engage others to do so as well, recognizing that this is still going to be a very tight, a very difficult race for Kamala Harris to win.
Is the problem they've got, though, Eric Ham, is that the headline act, the rock and roll moment, the Obamas, they've already been on. How on earth do you follow that? No offence to Mr. Waltz, but he's no Barack Obama. Tim Waltz is going to appear tonight. Who else? I hear Bill Clinton might hope interview.
Yeah, Bill Clinton is going to speak tonight. We're also going to hear from the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. And so what we are seeing from the Democrats over this week is an ode to the past with people like Barack and Michelle Obama, Bill and Hillary Clinton, but also they're showcasing many of their young stars. Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary who ran for president back in 2020, he's going to be speaking tonight. And yes, we're going to hear from Kamala Harris's running mate, Tim Walz, as well. That certainly will get the crowd fired up. But again, there is no Michelle and Barack Obama, which is why, of course, they were able to be history makers and win the presidency not once, but twice.
But Eric Ham, the comfort blanket of the past is one thing. I'm Nottingham Forest fan. All we've got is the past. But looking ahead, can Kamala Harris win? The opinion polls are giving her a slight boost. November is a long way off, and it's all still to play for in those key swing states. And I believe Donald Trump is still more trusted on the economy. Maybe that's why they're saying you must get out and vote. They're whipping up the crowd because they know that every single vote will count come November the 5th.
You're absolutely right. And this is still very much a tight race. However, we are seeing right now in the latest ABC Washington Post poll, Kamala Harris is leading in many of the key battleground states as well as nationally. And many expect that she will get a bump coming out of this convention this week. However, that still does not negate the fact that this is still going to be a very tight race. And all eyes after this week will be focused on what's going to happen in 2 weeks when Kamala Harris and Donald Trump face off for the first time in their presidential debate. That, I think, will go a long way in determining whether or not Kamala Harris is up for this job. And it also could give Donald Trump an opportunity to blunt her momentum and move things back in his direction.
Absolutely, Eric Ham. It's one thing to play to the gallery, a packed convention there in Chicago full of friendly, supportive faces. It's one thing. But can she face the music in front of Donald Trump? She's already turned down the Fox News debate, Eric Ham. Do you think those TV debates will be instrumental in who decides who they're going to vote for come November?
Absolutely. And if you just want to get an idea of how instrumental these debates are, look what happened when Joe Biden had his one and only debate with Donald Trump. He no longer is now the Democratic presidential nominee. And so these debates clearly are everything in determining the outcome of this race. And it's going to be interesting because we know already Donald Trump does have a debate this election cycle under his belt. Kamala Harris, however, has not had a debate since going back to 2020. And so many do not know if she's up for this, if she will be able to actually stand toe-to-toe with Donald Trump on that debate stage. And so many people will be watching. And of course, many people are still trying to determine, in fact, who Kamala Harris is. And that's why we're watching this week as she defines herself and as the Democratic Party puts together this narrative of who Kamala Harris is, not only personally, but what she will do as commander-in-chief.
Eric Ham, call me a cynic, but a lot of people wanted Michelle Obama to actually stand as the candidate this time. She was on stage last night making a fantastic play. Is Kamala Harris the second best candidate that the Democrat Party have in terms of potential woman of colour being the next president? And actually, could this be about the next time around? Might we see Michelle Obama as that rock and roll candidate, which maybe more Democratic voters want to see than Kamala Harris?
Look, Michelle Obama is never going to stand as president, as a candidate for president of the United States. She's made that abundantly clear. However, I think Kamala Harris does have the opportunity to actually elevate herself to those Michelle and Barack Obama levels if she can actually win in November, if she can actually have a successful presidency. It still remains to be seen, which is why I think many are looking at her with a big question mark and determining whether or not she is actually up for this job. And are they willing to actually take the chance on voting for her over former President Donald Trump.
Okay, Eric Ham, I'm on a bit of a roll today. I'm going to bet you a pint of beer, an English pint of beer, that Michelle Obama does stand as a candidate in the future. We accept my bet.
Absolutely, I will. And I can't wait to have that drink on you.
That's 2 pints I've won today. Eric Ham, live in Chicago, and I hope to speak to you tomorrow. Have a fantastic convention tonight. Always a delight to have you on the show. Now, next, we got the latest from Northern Ireland on the unrest there after the Prime Minister called rioters racists. Back soon. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is a big old headache because we talk a lot about GP appointments, don't we? But certainly almost everyone I know struggles to see a dentist when they need one.
Yes.
You know the best time to go to a dentist? When? 2:30. 2:30.
That's actually quite good. It's better than my gags.
The guy that went into Goa, to India, to get his dental treatment, is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, so tell us about that. I mean, this is how desperate people are to get treatment now. So what's the story?
OK, the story is a guy couldn't get an appointment at the NHS, so he went all the way to Goa in India to get his dental appointment. Now, I think he probably just wanted to go on holiday, and he thought, I know, why don't I go on holiday to Goa and then get my teeth done? Look, people are travelling in their droves. There's whole aeroplanes full of people with medical tourists. Like in Turkey, you get a whole aeroplane with people with hair implants and things like that.
Well,
yeah. I was going to go to
turkey teeth, isn't it?
Turkey teeth.
Turkey teeth. Well, now
that's when they strip the tooth down and you have these little pegs.
Yes, they strip them down, but in many cases they strip them down far too low, so the nerve is exposed and it gets infected, and it's exposed to the elements. So you get infection in the tooth, and then you have to essentially take them all off. But by then the infection spreads so far. I was getting my nails done the other day, which I don't do very often, and my nail technician said to me, "Is your dad still a dentist?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Please, can I have an emergency appointment?" I went to Turkey and I got my teeth done, and now they look incredible, but I'm in so much pain. They're all infected. She had 15 taken out from the top and 12 from the bottom, and it's an absolute disaster. But this is what people are feeling like they have to do.
So medical tourism doesn't always work.
No, but it shows, doesn't it, Alex, that people can't get their teeth sorted here, so they go elsewhere. Listen, do you floss, by the way?
Don't floss. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 6. We're on the final furlong now. Over the last few weeks, much of the civil unrest and anti-immigration protests in Northern Ireland took place in working-class areas. And one of these is Sandy Row in South Belfast. And our Northern Ireland reporter, Dougie Beattie, went there to find out more.
It's been absolutely horrendous over the last few days. We have seen some damage to properties which we have to condemn outright, and we have seen ratting in the streets that we have to condemn outright. Nobody in this community wants to see that, but there has been an absolute build-up, I believe, over the years of lack of investment in the area that has now caused a lot of resentment to people who are trying to open business in this area.
Local councillor Tracy Kelly lives and represents a former industrial area. With low incomes and lack of academic achievement, these areas are struggling with a sense of belonging and, most importantly, identity. Former commercial premises are being bought up by developers and converted into apartments that are financially out of reach by the local communities. One such property now up for sale is a local boxing club that plays a major part in this community. Young people must have a focus, and like most inner city areas, drugs and antisocial behaviour are commonplace. Raymond Curran explains how the club offers a different way.
Well, there is a problem, definitely. But when we bring them here, it's like it's a wee safe haven and they've nothing to worry about. We talk them in here. We try to keep them and put them on the right path. And my son came here, he's autistic, so he is, and he came here, he was 15.5 stone, out of weight, overweight, out of shape, and within about 5 or 6 months, he came here, and you can see him behind me. You know, look at him there, he's 6'3", and he's dropped about 3 stone. He interacts with people, he's come out of his shell, you know, he's made so many friends. You know, just that alone has been great. He used to sit in his room playing his wee Xbox or whatever, and now he actually can't wait to get over here 2-3 times a week.
Belfast City Council supplies no funding to this club, while its strategy in other parts of the city supply close to £200,000. But for Sandy Rowe, the fight for a new home must go on. Dougie Beattie, GB News, Belfast.
It's an excellent report from Dougie Beattie. He's been consistently brilliant on the riots. Those community need boxing gyms like Sandy Row. They keep the communities cohesive. They give working class lads in particular structure, focus, and to sell them off and maybe turn them into God knows what, maybe asylum seeker accommodation is simply outrageous. Now that's it from me. Tubes & Co is up next. I'll be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock. I'm Martin Daubney. Now it's your weather with Aidan McGibbon. Have a great evening.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, time for the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Wet and windy, increasingly so in the northwest overnight, drier elsewhere, and for all of us it will be a relatively mild, if not warm, night to come. A couple of low pressure systems heading our way. The one to the south contains the remnants from ex-hurricane Ernesto, no longer a hurricane but containing a lot of tropical moisture, and that moisture resulting in a lot of rainfall across northwestern parts overnight, especially western Scotland, where there's a rain warning enforced because of the risk in places of 100 to 150 millimetres of rain, especially West Highland and Skye, risk of localised flooding. Additionally, increasingly strong winds will affect Irish Sea coastal areas, the hills of northern England and southern Scotland, and some